This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Okay, welcome, listener, to this episode, episode 6, concerning The Last Jedi. Oh, I'm Kyler.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ross.
Oh, man, I am looking forward to this.
So before, just to keep Kyler waiting, we will discuss some news. I'm giving the news this time because this is one of the rare occasions that I actually found Star Wars news that these two guys didn't already know about, which never happens because I go out of my way not to find information on the new movies coming out and everything. But apparently I've been searching enough Star Wars stuff lately that Google has decided I want more and has started putting that in my newsfeed. And this was this last week, the beginning of September, they released the sales numbers for... Disney released the sales numbers for home video versions of The Last Jedi and some other movies. And so far, in 2018, The Last Jedi is sitting at number 1 in home movie sales worldwide. Which means that The Last Jedi's home movie sales have even eclipsed Black Panther's sales. Which is astounding.
Impressive.
Now, to be fair, Black Panther's has not been on home video for as long as Last Jedi. It's about a month or a month and a half behind.
But I don't think it's going to close the gap. It could.
Yeah, it could, but...
And how far is Black Panther behind?
About a month and a half. It came out in mid-February.
As far as numbers go.
Oh, not much. It was really close. They were both... The sales were, up in the 80-something millions, and they were 500,000 apart. So it was really close. Black Panther actually has more DVD sales, but Last Jedi has enough Blu-ray sales over that to eclipse it by 500,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll also note this does not include digital versions. So with that, Last Jedi is sitting at the article I read estimated easily over $100 million in home video sales so far. Now, and that's the top for 2018 so far in September, but that we do not yet have Avengers Infinity Wars sales yet.
Oh, so it could be top.
I really doubt Last Jedi will hold that through the end of the year, but even so, it is very impressive.
Oh boy.
So, that's our news for this week.
Okay, on to the main event, main course.
Now, before we really get started...
Yeah, Ross wanted to make sure this got out there.
Yes. Now, you can already tell there's a little trepidation amongst the three of us here, because this is kind of a debate. We're just going to say it's just a hot topic. So whatever you hear and whatever transpires in the rest of this episode, we are still friends afterwards. We just want to make that clear.
But if Chris isn't here in the next episode, just know that I probably rage killed him. So, no, I'm just kidding. It is. We will part as friends. We are definitely going to disagree.
We already know we all have very strong opinions on this, and many of them disagree. Namely, mine and Ross's opinions starkly disagree with Kyler's.
Basically,
yeah.
But there's some disagreement there too. So.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I will also stress that with movie viewing, there is a lot of there are a lot of things that when I talked before in previous episodes about how when a movie's hasn't gotten you across that line of entertainment where you need to cross to start hand waving plot holes and stuff, things start standing out to you a lot. Which is one of the things with Rogue One. I have a lot of complaints about Rogue One that we'll get to in later episodes that I'm very aware are nitpicky. They're the sort of things that I would hand wave if I had been enjoying a movie like I have with a lot of other, Avengers is one of my favorite examples. Plot holes that you could fly a Chitauri tank through. But I was having fun, so I didn't care. Even once I got them pointed out to me later, I went, I don't care. It's I get it, that's kind of funny, but that's movies. We've all been watching movies a long time, and we all know how easy it is to have plot holes just left and right. And so, there may be a lot of things that we mention in these episodes that don't bother you, that you feel are nitpicky, and yeah, they might be. But, Kyler was not in a place in Last Jedi where he could let those things slide. His suspension of disbelief was not set up properly.
It was not suspended.
Yes, where my problem with Rogue One was one of those too. So just be aware.
Yeah,
we like nitpicks. We're geeks.
Yeah,
it's fine.
That's the whole point of this podcast, is to nitpick Star Wars for the good and the bad. So anyway, so yeah, let's just get into it. I don't even know how we want to
I'm thinking,
start this.
I don't know about you, Ross, but I'm fine with you just...
I'm the prosecution, you guys are the defense.
Just try and keep, give us individual points that we can then respond to.
Yeah.
And
okay.
We'll try and
so in preparation, and I'm going to wave my papers here so you can hear the mass behind this. In preparation for this episode, I decided... let me back up. So, before we did this episode, I had watched Last Jedi a total of twice. Saw it opening night, was really disappointed, had already bought tickets for, saw it Thursday night, had bought tickets Saturday to take the girls, couldn't find any member of my family that wanted to take my ticket and go, so I had to see it again, and I was thoroughly disappointed. And I hadn't watched it since. I very begrudgingly bought the DVD, angrily so, but didn't watch it, didn't want to watch it, and then I was like, well, I've got this episode coming up, it's been... Let's see, it is September now. We saw it so it's been 9 months since I've seen this. I need, in all fairness, I need to watch it again just to make sure. And third time, I liked it much better than the first 2 times. I will come out and say that. However, I'm still looking, I still overall hated it. And so while I was watching it, I took notes. And I have 5 pages of notes of things that I didn't like, and then there were some other videos and articles and things that I'd read online of why people didn't like it, some of which I disagreed with, and I'm sure those will come up where I will say, yeah, no, these people are wrong. But there was one video in particular by Vito on YouTube. It's called Star Wars Last Jedi was a cinematic failure, something like that, and I thought the essence of his 10 points were pretty well articulated and hit on a lot of the things that I found myself disagreeing with, but didn't quite know how to articulate. And so I saw his points, and I'm going, okay, the essence of your points, some of his commentary on those points, I'm like, okay, that's a bit much, but the essence of his points I thought were valid.
And I will add, to give credit to where credit is due, that some of the things that you hear me say will very likely be paraphrases or just direct quotes from Jenny Nicholson on YouTube. So thank you, Jenny. I found you through your Star Wars commentary back when Rogue One came out, and you were pointing out what a mediocre film it is. And I have liked you ever since.
And because, just to complete the trio, my thoughts are my own. Mine are not based off of YouTube videos, except for I do have one quote.
Now, to be fair, both of us picked those videos because they reflected our...
Yes, that's why. I didn't... Yeah.
I do have one quote from a person I do know from the Armed Forces, which I'm sure we'll get into.
I do have, some stuff from Armed Forces.
Other than that, everything else is my own opinions.
Yeah. So, okay, so I think the easiest way to do this will be to go through my movie as I watched it.
Yeah. However you like.
Yes.
And we'll just go from there. So, the movie opens beautifully. And I will say this for Last Jedi. It is not an ugly movie. There's not a single frame of that movie that you couldn't put on your wall as a piece of art.
Yeah.
Like, it's a gorgeous movie start to finish. And so, 0 complaints there.
It's gorgeous enough that I, who normally do not care about that, like, a movie has to be very visually entrancing before it's going to affect my opinion in the slightest. And this is a movie that I walked out of and went, holy cow, that was gorgeous. Like, that's how...
And even that very first time watching it, opening night, I went, wow, I really hated the story and everything about it, but can't knock the visuals, man. They knocked it out of the park on that. So, credit there. But the opening scene, right, is the evacuation of Dakar, the rebel base on Dakar. And immediately the First Order shows up, and I'm thinking, okay... We could have one of my 2 favorite things in Star Wars, which is a space battle. The other favorite thing being a good lightsaber battle, right? So I'm going, okay, space battles. I'm down. Let's see where you go with this. And what we get is immediately humor and dialogue that belongs with Tony Stark in the Marvel universe. And you mentioned Marvel earlier, Chris, and so I wanted to. It's actually the Avengers. So if you look at the first Avengers movie, back before Marvel had done 8,000 movies, each of the main Avengers has a very distinct feel in their dialogue. They do.
No, I agree.
Yeah. It's
I
like
just the way it sounds like you're going with this, it sounds like I'm going to immediately say, that's just the complete opposite.
So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of these. Anyway,
Yep.
So Captain America's lines in Avenger very much feel like Captain America. It's a little bit more stoic. It's more serious. It's
Joss
down to earth.
Whedon is very good at giving us an ensemble where every character is a different person.
Tony Stark, it might as well be called Tony Snark in Avengers, and that's his character, and that's beautiful, and it's what it should be. And every character is like that. They all feel very distinct in their dialogue. Poe in Episode 7 has almost no dialogue, but is definitely not a Marvel character. Poe in Episode 8, particularly that opening scene, his lines feel like he, stole some script from Tony Stark. The hold on, like, I'm on hold, okay, I'm hold. I think it goes on too long. Like, it's the first time it's kind of like, oh, that's funny. And then he does it again, and then he does it again, and he does it again. And it's kind of like, hey, you're kind of running this horse into the ground here. And then he ends it literally with a Yo Mama joke, which is just, I'm going, man, this does not feel like Star Wars humor at all, and the dialogue sounds like Marvel. Disney, stop. Don't make everything Marvel.
I would suggest that maybe we want to expand this to a discussion of the humor as a whole instead of just this one scene.
Sure, we can do that.
Sure.
And I would say then, too, like, and actually I probably have this later, but Finn in his leaking suit, it's like, that is Marvel slapstick stuff going on. We don't really see, and again, I don't think it's fair to compare the prequels to the sequels, because the prequels notably and inarguably had bad dialogue and bad jokes. So if we're looking at what sort of is the gold standard for Star Wars, the original trilogy, compare the sequels to the original trilogy, we don't see this sort of slapstick gag humor.
I would disagree.
Where's an example?
C-3PO with his head on backwards.
Okay, one.
That's just off the top of my head. Most of anything to do with the Ewoks. Anytime the Ewoks are being even remotely funny is pretty similar to that.
Are they funny, though?
They're trying to be.
Oh,
that's the attempt.
It's so bad. Oh, I don't know. To me, it just felt really jarring, and so immediately it sort of kicked me out of that universe, that suspension of disbelief immediately in that very first scene. That just
any more on the humor then?
I mean, maybe later I'll have to.
I would like to interject one thing, just because we're talking about this frame in particular. I was watching the movie with the audio commentary in preparation for this episode. It's given by Rian Johnson himself. I know, and see,
now you gotta stop that.
Yeah, you do.
If you can't even hear his name, that makes you look less than balanced on your opinions.
So he talks about the humor there at the beginning, because he knew that the subject matter that he was going to get into with this episode was going to be very heavy, but he also wanted to reinforce that it's going to be okay to laugh at this point. Now, granted, maybe a mama joke may not have been
Go ahead.
the best.
I will come to that.
But the fact that you have some sort of humor there, I mean, was necessary.
And to be fair to Johnson, it's not just him. I had some problems with Finn's character in Force Awakens when he's like, "Oh, you got a boyfriend? Got a hot boyfriend?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, that just it feels out of place. It just feels a little bit off." And then also Phasma in Episode 7 when he's like, "Oh, who's in charge now, Phasma? I'm in charge. I'm in charge." I'm just like, "Whoa." I felt very much like Han, where it's like, simmer down, boy. Like, you're out of place. But then, that's another humor thing as well. When he's like, "Oh, let's go, Chrome Dome," I'm like, oh my gosh, who's writing this dialogue?
See,
George
now
Lucas?
I love that though, because in contrast to what I thought you were about to say, every single character has a different brand of humor in this. Poe is very Tony Starkish, but that's not that different from how he was in the first one. In the first one, in Force Awakens, we've got. So who starts here? Do you talk or do I talk?
Yeah.
He constantly, his entire interaction with Kylo Ren is that sort of snark. Like, he is literally being tortured and he's snarking. If you're gonna claim that that's some new thing, it's not. It's obviously not. It's turned up a few notches. I'll allow you that. But the idea that it wasn't already established as part of his character, that was his entire
I'll give you
character.
that, but I think it's the turning it up that ruined it. They were like, "Oh, you like that? You know, it's like seasoning. It's like, oh, you put a little salt in there. That's good. Oh, you like salt, do you? Here you go. You know, and they put too much in."
I will add that when I was watching this, there were a few scenes, and including Poe's dialogue there at the beginning, where it also knocked me out a little bit, where I was like, "Well, that's a little different," but then it was like, "Okay, well, that's a little different." Oh well, because. It doesn't. There's nothing about it. Like we were talking the other day about how you were concerned that some of it might date the movie. As I was watching it last night, I was specifically looking for any dialogue that would significantly date this movie.
Yeah, I did too when I rewatched it, and there wasn't anything. Certainly not anything as bad as like Jar Jar. How wooed, where it's like, oh boy.
Now, in response to the Yo Mama joke, which wasn't a Yo Mama joke, it was just a reference to his mother. I would say that. If insulting someone's mother as a way to insult them has a long and time-honored tradition, 3,500 years going back to Babylon, I will give you, you're a dog. Thy mother's of my generation, what's she if I be a dog? That would be Timon of Athens, Act 1, Scene 1. Villain, what hast thou done? That which thou canst not undo. Thou hast undone our mother. Villain, I have done thy mother. Timon of Athens
is written by Shakespeare.
So you missed. Come on. Villain, I have done thy mother is the line there. That is Titus Andronicus, Act 4, Season 2. Yeah. If it's good enough for Shakespeare, it's good enough for Star Wars.
And apparently 12-year-olds on Xbox Live.
And Yo Mama jokes, like I said, have a long and storied history. And that one was downright tasteful in comparison to even these that I just read from Shakespeare. I'm fine. Like I get how it's jarring, but it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? We've discussed this in other episodes. It's just gonna get more so. We're gonna get more.
I guess for me, it made it feel like a Marvel movie. Which, if I wanted to see a Marvel movie, I would have gone to see a Marvel movie. I wanted to see a Star Wars movie, and so. For me, it ticked me out and made me feel like I was watching a Marvel movie. If it had done that with every
character, because that's my problem with Marvel's humor, is you go watch the airport fight scene from Captain America Civil War.
Yeah.
And it's really pronounced in that because you have such a high concentration of heroes all fighting each other. There's no villains. And every so often they just pause so everyone can snark and they all sound exactly the same.
Yes.
With the exception of Cap, who they generally manage to keep a little bit aloof.
I was going to make that same comparison is that, compare the dialogue of the first Avengers movie, where you could say a line of dialogue and be like, oh, Thor said that.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain America said that. Oh, that was a Stark line.
Yeah.
Whereas, something like Ant-Man or the later Marvel movies, if you were to read a line of dialogue, it would be hard to pick who said it.
Whereas in this one, I feel they're pretty consistent throughout. Poe is snarky. Luke is more snarky than we expect, but it's dark snark. Mm-hmm. He's bitter.
Yeah.
And you've got a little bit of snark here and there, but I mean, a good chunk of it is Leia, which, if you're not expecting snark from Leia, then you haven't been
then you haven't watched Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. Her first scene,
Daisy Ridley never once delivers any snark at all. Neither does John Boyega. And John Boyega's lines are awkward, but that's kind of appropriate for a guy who has had no human interaction other than forced interaction between fellow stormtroopers. And I think I did
like it more this third time watching because I had your voice in the back of my head saying that.
And that so first time in the theater, that Let's Go Chrome Dome. Oh man, I winced. But then as I thought about it walking out of the theater, I went, well, actually, that's pretty consistent for Finn. He's an awkward guy, so I was all right with it.
Okay. Next point here. Can either of you tell me who Paige is?
Paige, isn't she she's the one played by Carrie Fisher's daughter, right?
Nope.
No.
Then I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Paige is the bomber crew who sacrifices herself, who we're supposed to apparently care about. I couldn't find a reason to care about her. It's like you're a rebel who's sacrificing yourselves, but that's all rebels do is sacrifice themselves for causes. So why should I care more about you than anybody else we've seen die so far? Who cares? She has barely any dialogue, and then she dies, and you could tell by the music that they're like, "Come on, heartstrings, we're supposed to be pulling on you right now." And I'm going, "Yeah, but you've given me zero reason to care about you." Then later, Rose is all crying because Paige is Rose's sister, who has died, and now Rose is all bummed out because she lost a sister today, and you should feel bad for me. And I'm going, I would love to feel bad for you, except I don't give a crap about your sister or your loss.
I'd feel more upset about that if she weren't such a minor. Like, she's a motivation character, but here's the thing. That's how I feel about literally every character in Rogue One. I don't care about any of them. And they're the main characters.
Yeah. So for me, I was just going, I can see from like a movie-making, storytelling standpoint what you're trying to do, Rian Johnson. You're trying to say, oh, all you people in the audience care about this rebel nobly sacrificing themselves. And I'm just going, there is nothing that differentiates her from anyone else who has just died. Nobody. There's no reason.
I'd be more concerned about that if it weren't for the fact that they make a point of all these people died and Leia's
normally
reaction to
wouldn't. It wouldn't bother me so much because it's like literally, like I said, rebels do nothing but die for causes. They're like the Bothans, right? All we do is die to bring us information, right? So I'm going, she could be just another rebel who dies, but then it's the fact that they try to build off of that for part of Rose's character and why she's sad and why we should care about Rose. I'm going, it's like you're trying to have Rose, this character, stand on a sandcastle. She goes to stand on it and it just collapses. Like it didn't do anything for it. And so for me, it kind of weakened that whole character.
But see, so if they had never shown Paige at all, that still makes you not care about Rose's character?
If Rose, maybe I'm like a totally callous jerk. I don't know. Could be. I am on the dark side after all. If Rose had just shown up and been crying and then said, I lost my sister today, like, in the bombers or whatever, I'd been like, okay, whatever. That's okay. But the fact that they are consciously being like, here, come over here, we're going to ham fist this emotion down your throat. Oh, that was her sister. But I'm going, okay, so I'm supposed to feel bad for you right now, but I already don't feel bad about the character that's making me.
But see, that's the thing is you're sitting here saying if they hadn't had her at all, yeah, I'd care, all right. But because you saw it and it wasn't emotional enough for you, you don't care.
Well, no, I guess because I didn't care about Paige, and then they are trying to tie consciously Rose's sorrow to Paige. That lack of care for Paige sort of, for me, carried over into Rose, is what I'm saying.
See, the reason Paige's death worked for me is as a unit with all the other deaths, because I was watching that scene going, oh man, they are losing a lot of people here. Because it started out, it's a very cohesive scene. Leia tells him, don't do this. He does it anyway.
Yeah.
You watch one after another go down, and then
I did like that aspect.
That it takes her, that she has this long drawn out sequence of desperately trying to activate the bombs, sells to me the idea that they barely made this by the skin of their teeth. Like, this was not a solid bet on Poe's part.
Yeah.
He barely managed that. And so while I can see not laying, I'll say no, I wasn't particularly devastated by her death personally, but as a unit with the whole scene, it worked really well for me. And
and I felt more. I guess my heart grew a size when I watched it for the third time, because I did feel more about it. But overall, I still wasn't particularly impacted by her death specifically. Right. Now, I fully agree with you where it is a great sequence of events that show, that Poe is reckless or whatever. And I did like that. And just watching it go from bad to worse so quickly, I was going, wow, are we going to see like the Empire win? That'd be cool. And but then, that brings up another plot hole, I guess, kind of with big fat air quotes around it. I'm not a fan of conflating mistakes with plot holes.
Right.
So a mistake, I think, would be if presumably you guys know how explosive the bombs are on your bombers. If you're that prone to explosion after you've activated your bombs, why in the world are you flying that close together? Why is your formation so tight? Like, presumably you know a little bit about...
Presumably because they have very few defenders and they need to keep in a cluster in order for them to...
I know, but just to me...
Which is why Paige's craft manages to last so long at the end, because everyone else is gone and the defenders only have one to protect.
And this is why I would not count this as a plot hole. I would say this is a tactical mistake made by the characters in the movie. Not so much a plot hole, but for me, just as because I love strategy games.
It's one of those things that made you go, well, I wouldn't normally nitpick about this, but I'm not in a mood not to nitpick now.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, just like as a strategist, because I love like real-time strategy games, I love chess, all those anything with strategy I love. And so I'm looking at that scene going, well, shoot, okay, that was really cool that all these guys blew up, and that's, I guess, good luck for the Empire. But boy, if I were a rebel commander, knowing that the ships are that volatile and that have that little armor to protect themselves against flying debris, when you're a bomber who's going to be creating flying debris, I would have maybe spread out a little bit. But anyway,
They did also have one particular point they were aiming for. So I mean,
I know, but it's just I was going, man. Then
you're not
fly
wrong.
him in a conga line or something. Do something different. I don't know.
Fair enough.
And while we're on the subject of that, this is something that has been brought up as a problem by people on the internet. It's not a problem that I have, but I thought we'd go there anyway. The bombs and
They
the
shouldn't fall
gravity
because
or
there's
whatever.
no gravity.
No.
And I think Ross
You
is
got
going to
this.
go.
I was
Yes.
going to go
Yeah.
there too. But you got
So I'm a fan of a YouTube series called Because Science, where he just takes movies and popular culture and that sort of thing, and does actually do the science behind what you've seen or heard of. And he talks about the whole entire Last Jedi and talks about this specifically. So turns out, fun fact for you: the astronauts that we have on the International Space Station right now are still technically under 90% of the gravity that we are here on the surface of the Earth.
90%?
90%.
Wow, that's crazy.
The thing is what happens is that an orbit isn't actually you just being propelled around a planet. It's you're falling, you just keep missing the edge. Because there's no resistance, you have that angular momentum that you just keep going around.
That's a great way to describe it. You fall, but you keep missing the edge.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And so even though
I'm learning all kinds of things, listener.
and so you can see that planet in the distance. They are farther away than what like the ISS would be, but there is still actual gravity that would be pulling them down. Also, they could be like magnetic rails. I mean, it could be a
and
rail.
also
That's what I'm just like.
bomber-
There are so many ways that
The
you could
bombers
manage that.
themselves are going to have their own, like artificial gravity, which would make them fall. Then
Which
they
is
talked
obviously
about
affecting Paige.
Yeah, they talked about
never
that
gonna
there is
forget
some
her
sort
name.
of like propellant system in there, whether it's magnetized or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm going, guys, this is Star Wars. This is a movie series about people killing each other with swords made of light and lasers and explosions with sound in space.
I was going to say, this is a movie with sound in space.
So the bombs falling out of the bombers and heading down onto a big ship, let it be.
Frankly, that's
who
not
cares?
even close to the most scientifically improbable thing in
Exactly.
this movie, and not even way beyond anything in the rest of the series.
And so that's one thing that was brought up frequently online as a problem, and I'm going, guys, that's such a non-issue.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it. The next thing is that Hux, he becomes a sniveling buffoon in episode 8. In episode 7, he's the man in charge under Snoke. He's kind of the guy who runs the show. Kylo Ren is Snoke's enforcer in much the same way that Darth Vader is the Emperor's enforcer. He's not a part of the regular political hierarchy. He's just there to kind of go get the dirty jobs done with a lightsaber. But for all intents and purposes, Hux is sort of the face of the First Order in episode 7. He's the one making the speeches. He seems to come off as, Kylo Ren is definitely undermining his authority intentionally in front of his troops and stuff, but that's really a rivalry between mostly equals. These two guys are sort of on the same rung of the ladder in the First Order. But Hux, even though Kylo Ren is sort of undermining him, there's a good give and take where he's undermining Kylo Ren and pointing out how Kylo has failed in front of Snoke and, maybe I'm better or whatever. But he seems to be mostly in control, still fighting for his position with Kylo, but pretty much he's unquestioned. He's kind of a guy in command. In episode 8, after Poe humiliates him in front of his crew and makes him look like an idiot because he's too stupid to get that he's being jerked around by this rebel, which can't even imagine the undercut of authority. It's like you would never see that with Piet or Nita or even Ozzel, the most incompetent of Imperial captains, right?
You would never see that with them because they are boring people with barely any character.
Sure.
This scene would never happen.
But you
because
just
they're not
don't
really
see
characters.
it. But as an audience member in episode 7, I'm going, okay, I'm taking Hux seriously as a threat. He's a different kind of threat than Kylo Ren, but he's still a threat. In episode 8, in that first scene, I'm going, okay, this guy's a pushover. He's totally lame. This guy, man, he's not all he's cracked up
for
to
me,
be.
that sounds like a very personal problem. Because, I can see some of it, but watching it last night, I was specifically looking because I hit that scene and I was like, yeah, Hux does feel a little different here than he did in the last movie. But as the movie went on, I was like, no, you know what? Hux is still pretty consistent with what he was. This is a guy who he gets scolded is a soft word, by the giant floating head of Snoke.
In 8 or 7?
In 8.
So in 8, he gets
number
flopped
8,
around.
and he gets smacked into the deck. He is bleeding from his
by the way,
face.
commentary on the movie, apparently that stunt actor that did that scene broke his nose.
I'm not
doing
surprised.
that,
It looks
Yeah,
hard.
it was nasty.
Anyway,
So, and then he goes up, and the next thing we see of him is him confidently reporting to Snoke, this is where we're at. Like, to step up after that and go, nope, I'm okay. I got that. And he does that throughout the movie. Like, when he is in the cockpit with Kylo at the end, in that end sequence, and Kylo saying, I'm going to go down there and get him, this is a man who has nearly killed Hux. Like, he choked him, nearly killed him. That's the only reason Hux is following him at all. And he still has the balls to go, you can't go down there. This is a stupid move.
Yeah.
And then he gets thrown against the side of the cockpit for his effort. And the next time we see him is him glaring, like, he's still got the stones to openly glare at this guy in front of all, like, like, I had an initial reaction similar to that, but watching last night, I was watching for, like, yeah, I do feel like he's a bit weaker, and I was like, on a repeat viewing here, I'm not so sure he does. Like, that is definitely a massive
And
undercut.
I don't mind
but-
Snoke throwing him around, because he's Snoke. He is the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
So if Snoke wants to disrespect a subordinate, who is Hux, so be it. That's the name of the game in the Empire. But to have Hux be the butt of all these jokes, for me, it totally undercut his credibility as a villain.
All these jokes.
well, so
Like, the repeated holding jokes, and then he's tooling with geez, I must
the
be
one
an idiot,
sequence.
it's
the one
yeah,
sequence.
it's one joke. That's all. One joke.
But it repeats and repeats and repeats. It's like
Yeah,
4
because
times
he's
he does it.
stalling.
Oh,
Yeah,
like something
seriously,
else.
dude. It's specifically
Anyway,
that he's stalling.
I will give you
it has to be long.
I will give you that, though, that later in the movie, I mean, yeah, he, even after getting choked, he overrides Kylo's order and tells him, that's
and I
enough,
would point that out
so.
with the length of that scene is it has to be long. He's stalling for time.
Yeah.
If it had just ended, it would have been like, what? That was stalling for time?
Yeah.
Well, that took no time at all. Why did you even send him?
What they could have done is just not had the joke and had the charge time for the afterburner be a lot less.
And then he wouldn't have stalled for time. Like, there would have been...
Right. Well, what I'm saying is they could have cut that out, because we're under the assumption of he had to stall for time because the afterburner length charging
he was
time
stalling
was like
for
set.
time for the people behind him loading up ships, too.
But we could have but what I'm saying is taking out those jokes and just fast forwarding time or whatever and saying, okay, 10 seconds later he's ready to go. It literally doesn't change anything else in the story. You know what I mean?
Except that scene would have been a lot more boring.
Oh,
Yeah, and it
I
would
think
have
been better.
It would have shortened some of the tension. You need time to build up tension in a scene, even though you're making a joke. It's still in your mind. But there's all this is going to be happening.
Are we going to do the likes later, or because this is all just
I don't
bad
care what
stuff.
I've just...
Yeah, I mean, I had done mine.
Okay, we'll do
Let's do them at the end,
We'll do
because
likes
I've got
later.
a whole bunch
Okay.
of them that I'm sure you won't bring up.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, maybe.
You might. Some of them you will,
Yeah.
I'm sure. You already have.
So,
but-
Luke's lightsaber toss over the shoulder when Rey hands it to him. I think that is totally... It undercuts everything. And I'm going to just wholesale rip off Vito from YouTube here, because he articulates what I was feeling. So, not that I'm ripping him off, but when he said it, I was like, yes, that's what I was trying to say. That it undercuts all that emotional buildup in Episode 7 to then have Luke just go, whoop, just kidding. Who cares? I don't care about any of this.
Yeah, that's deliberate. It's supposed to undercut that. That's the whole point of 90% of this movie is we're undercutting what we've done before. Like, you see,
But it's like, it undercuts not just the emotion, but like the whole purpose of Episode 7.
Now, I apologize if this comes off as condescending, but I would say it wasn't what you wanted, and so you were bothered by it.
I will fully admit to that. It is not what I wanted.
That
and
doesn't
did
make it a
bother me.
flaw, because it's specifically setting up where Luke is at. That is number one thing he does, is just toss this aside. I am not part of this.
To me, it felt almost disrespectful to the original trilogy. That's what the lightsaber represents. It is the past. It is the original trilogy.
But again, that's reinforcing the point.
The point that's about, I don't know, I think he could have still been like, this is not for me, without, I don't know, it felt
but that's
so
the thing, is that I
disrespectful.
feel,
I don't know.
It bothered you on a personal level, but that's not a flaw in the movie. It's doing everything he wanted it to. It's setting up everywhere he's at, and I think that's a huge chunk of most people's problems with Luke. This isn't what I wanted. Hashtag not my Luke.
Well, and this is the thing, like, Luke's How do I? Yeah,
because even I will add, like
is,
when I'm mocking that was a good chunk of my reaction too. Was this isn't what I
am
wanted from
okay, fully okay with Luke's assessment of the Jedi Order and their problems. Like when he's talking to Rey and he's like, okay, you want me to tell you about the Jedi? At the height of their power, their hubris allowed Emperor Palpatine to come to power. And I'm just going, yeah, that is 1,000% correct.
So we got to keep moving. But
okay, that scene really did bother me. Snoke's costume. This is just a little thing, but my note here was: did he raid Liberace's pajama drawer? Because it's pretty bad.
Ryan Johnson also mentions that particularly in the commentary. He says what it is it's basically it's Snoke compensating for his own physical frailty.
It must be.
So I mean, literally, Snoke is saying, I can be extravagant. Look at my wealth,
fabulous.
Power. Yeah,
it really. I expected him to say that,
but he is so physically frail that he has to try and distract you somehow. It's Little Big
My
Man
reaction
syndrome.
to that was, oh hey, that's less cliche than black. Thank you.
Yeah, I would have been happier with black because it is cliche for the Sith Master, you know. But I don't know. Which he's and I don't know. He could have still gone not black.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways he could have gone.
Without
and I agree
going full
that,
Liberace
but
meets Elton John, you know. It's just like, wow, every time I see that I'm going, it takes the wind out of his sails for me. I'm just going, it's hard to take you seriously as a villain when you're literally in gold sparkles.
Didn't bother me at all.
It took me back just as a
I had a moment, where I was like, that's
that,
different.
yeah.
But different is good for me. So
yeah. Luke milking a space cow, a space sea cow. I was looking at that going, oh my goodness. Why would you show that?
Because he's trying to make her uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it apparently worked. Because it not only made her uncomfortable, it made all of you
the other thing that I noticed this third time...
Because he's also a hermit that's been living on an island for the last, 15 years?
My reaction to that scene was, hey, green milk, cool.
Yeah.
But it was so gratuitous. Where I'm just going, there's lots of ways where you could have been like... Because I've heard that argument too. It's like, well, they're showing how he survives on this island alone. Okay.
I'm starting to see some repeated things here but they could have done that differently. But it did everything it was supposed to.
Yeah.
It bothered you personally, but that doesn't mean they needed to do it.
And this was another thing I noticed on the third...
the effect it's supposed to.
On the third watch, I noticed this too. The sounds that sea cow is making while being milked, it is enjoying it far too much.
Yes, it is.
It is...
That's why it's uncomfortable.
Everything about that, I'm just going... It made me uneasy about taking my kids to see that.
And the fact that the way that Mark Hamill sold that perfectly for me. The way he's watching her makes it abundantly clear. And I am doing this to make you uncomfortable.
His little cheers.
You're gonna just sit here and watch this, really?
Yeah.
And it cheers thing, and it's dripping in his beard. Yeah. It was just.
I thought it was
so gross.
I love it.
And I did like the whole dripping in his beard. I'm like, okay, we're definitely selling, and I think selling well the crazy hermit. Like, look, I want to be left alone. I'll give you that, but I'm just going, it seems to me over the top that they could have done less of it or something. I don't know. It just seemed gratuitous. So, my big complaint, and as you mentioned, is that Luke doesn't really feel like Luke to me anymore. And this is not necessarily because of his mentality change. I think Luke Skywalker could have had, actually, let me see this. Last Jedi Luke has no hope. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 Luke always has hope, regardless of how hopeless the situation.
I would say end of episode 5 Luke, until he's standing at that window, not so much. Hanging off the bottom of Cloud City, Luke.
So Luke has made poor decisions in the past, some of which were made out of anger or passion, we'll say, emotion, okay? He takes off to go find Obi-Wan. Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen get killed. And he's bummed out about it and wants to give up. Obi-Wan then says... Well, hold on. Remember, if you had been here, you'd be dead with them, and everything would be screwed. So pick yourself up. Let's push forward. Let's go to Alderaan. Oh, shiz. Alderaa's all blown to pieces. Okay, well, here's the next... I know. But what I'm saying is, Luke can go from disaster to disaster, some of which are his own fault. Like going to... he gets the vision on Dagobah. He goes to Bespin, gets his friends tortured, whatever. That's his own... He obviously doesn't come out of that great. And then he has a moment to compose himself and go, okay, you know what? we can make a plan. We'll set things in motion to go rescue my friends. Let's set this right. Episode 6, he goes into Jabba's palace, he's full of hope again, coming out of episode 5 with that. He goes full of hope into into Vader and Palpatine, thinking he can save his father. It's not looking
disagree
great,
with your assessment there.
But he comes away from all of these with some hope
but
that he
what
can
I'm
make
saying,
things better.
Is end of episode 5, all throughout that, there's no hope there. It's just despair. He's just found out that he's been lied to, that everything is topsy-turvy. Eventually he gets back on his feet, sure. But there's no hope there. It's not that he always has hope.
Okay.
And throughout most of Return of the Jedi, I would describe his behavior as less hopeful and more, this is my only option. Like his entire interaction with Yoda is all just, that's
what
true. Is this? What is going on?
What you said, though, like after episode 5 at the end, though, it is hope. He spends the episode without hope, but then at the end he's going, okay, things aren't great.
At the end he's back with his friends, so it's like, hey, I'm alive. But picking up with 6... He's not hopeful throughout most of 6. He's not the Jedi he was. People who I read a description once of someone talking about their experience in Return of the Jedi and how frightening it was, where they were like, "Oh no, is Luke going to the dark side?" Because Luke wasn't behaving like old Luke. Luke had changed.
Yeah.
Because he was less hopeless, because he was less hopeful, he was more grim. Yeah, he was determined to try to save his father, but that didn't mean he wasn't.
So was he trying without hope? He still had a hope?
He had some hope, but it wasn't by any means a defining characteristic.
Right. And also, too, in episode 6, after he and Vader, Luke and Vader have their lightsaber fight, Luke... actually, let me pause and I'll come back to that in a minute. But basically, I feel like Luke, no matter what, he gets knocked down, but he gets up again. Right? He has hardships, he has troubles. Some are his own fault, some are not his fault. But he always comes around to the end saying, okay, well, let's get back to doing things the right side. So then he makes a mistake with Kylo Ren. In a moment of anger, as he says, I turned on the lightsaber and realized what I was doing and instantly was like, whoa, come back, dude. Just like he does in episode 6, right? He beats Vader nearly to death and then literally looks at his own robot hand and is like, oh no, I'm going to...
and only comes out of that because the Emperor chose the wrong moment to start gloating.
Nonetheless, he comes out of it and he goes, hold on, get a hold of yourself, Luke, get control, no, throw the lightsaber away, no, I'm a Jedi like my father. So I'm going, I got no problem, and then a lot of people were like, Luke wouldn't get angry, he wouldn't get killed, and I'm going, no, Luke loses his temper a lot, I'm fine with that.
Don't have to make that argument.
But he always says, okay, let's rebuild, let's figure out where we went wrong and try again. Okay. So with Luke, I don't see how this one mistake, admittedly a personal mistake,
I think I want this.
is going to
I'll jump in after you.
Make him just quit the Jedi Order completely.
So, 2 things. First thing is that all of those things you mentioned before, where Luke has made a mistake or has been around a disaster, right? Is that something that is a part of his doing? Those were all very... relatively small scale disasters. It was his aunt and uncle dying. It was
that was
his.
pretty severe, but
but no, hold on though.
But it wasn't his.
Just watch. So he Han gets frozen in carbonite, etc., etc. With this event though, his one moment of indiscretion and falling to that passion now has the effect of sending the entire galaxy onto underneath the rule of another empire. His one mistake at trying to kill Kylo, which by the way, trying to kill Vader could be argued was in self-defense. Trying to kill Kylo was straight up would have been murder, right? Well, no, hold on, I'm not done. That one mistake not only is a much bigger sin, I guess is the best way to put it, kind of in his mind, but also has far, far greater and reaching consequences. So for him to actually then retire for several years is not, to take several years to recover is not out of the ordinary. And then that's the second point is, yes, he does bounce back in this movie. That's his storyline, is he recovers from that issue and takes his role again.
Kind of.
I would also add, Luke has never really failed before. We never once saw him fail.
Yeah.
He lost a fight to Vader. There's a difference between a loss and a failure. The devastating part of that was the reveal that he had been lied to. That this person was the father that he's heard all these stories about and idolized, that he found out he was a Jedi and a hero, and now he's one of the worst people in the galaxy. The failure was the people around him who failed him, which
looking at you, Obi-Wan,
which hurt him a lot. And now he is the person who has failed his student. He is doing what Obi-Wan and Yoda did. Now, not the exact, he's not lying and he's not doing all this.
Yeah.
But he is the master who has let down his student in a way that was first horrible of him in a lot of ways, even if he didn't act. Just that moment, that's terrifying. That's frightening to think, oh, holy cow, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then to have it have that far-reaching of consequences. Luke has never failed. And now he just failed on a scale, an order of magnitude
unprecedented scale,
none of us can even imagine.
Yeah.
He, in fact, did accidentally what Darth Sidious did on purpose.
Yeah. That's it.
Which is a success.
I mean, that is a colossal consequence.
And it also, not only that, but the consequences of that are not only this far-reaching galactic conflict, but also the death and or subversion of every student under his personal care that he has been trusted with, and the shattering of his own family.
Yeah.
Because it didn't get into the movies, but one thing my sister mentioned to me, she read the novelization of The Last Jedi, and one thing that I really wish they had put in there, just because we never really get to see Leia's flaws, is that after that, like, he has a line in the movie where he says, well, Leia blamed Snoke, and there's a bit in the book that says, yeah, Luke's being generous. Like, Leia, the part of the reason he left is because Leia flipped out and told him to.
Yeah.
And she, that's part of why Han left too, is because she basically just drove them away. Totally understandable. Totally within her particular fierce character. And then I would have liked to, seeing more.
That would have been a really cool flashback.
Yeah, if they could have shown us. Yeah. But anyway, I would say that the scale of this, I buy that breaking him to that degree for that long.
And I just go, Luke's, whole thing in Return of the Jedi is like, you're going to bring light back to the galaxy. You are restoring the light side of the Force. And so for him to just go, well, currently there's one guy, raise your hand, Luke, that's you, yep. One guy in the light side of the Force, and we have now at least some number of proficient dark side users, and you're just going to turn the galaxy over to them.
But he's not. He explicitly says this. The light does not exclusively belong to the Jedi. To say so is arrogance. Like, he's saying...
Well played.
And I'm not saying you're arrogant. I'm saying that that's where he is at. He's saying, I'm trying... I know I'm being horrible here. And it hurts. And I hate doing it. I hate being this. But we, the Jedi, including myself, have failed the galaxy so many times. Balance has been brought to the Force. They refer back to that old prophecy a couple times, which is one of my favorite things about this movie.
I did like that.
And he talks about it. He's basically saying it's like, light will arise. Like, it might be rough now, but it's gonna get better, whether or not I do it. And I should not be the one to do it. The Jedi in general should not be. Someone better than us needs to come. And so I'm going to kill us off so that someone better can come and take our place. He's not abandoning the universe. He is showing his understanding of how the Force works, and that Rey's very existence is a bit of a nod towards his evidence being true. That good will rise up. Snoke says so himself as well. That's part of it, and so he's not abandoning the universe. He's just stepping back and going, I am not the villain I am not the hero that the galaxy needs right now. But I'm the one it deserves. I'm not the one it deserves. I'm the one it needs right now. I got it backwards.
No, I think
talk about arrogance. I'm the hero the galaxy deserves.
I think Luke, of course, eventually comes to that conclusion, but I think actually you were closer to the mark in the beginning. So Luke was supposed to be the one to rebuild the Jedi, right? And then again, that one moment, he failed that charge. So again, it leads to him going and being his hermit again.
Whoa.
Just like all the other
Then I guess
Obi-Wan
Luke sucks as a character, because it's like you fail once and you give up. Go home. Ugh.
You fail once on an extreme degree.
Yeah, but still. Isn't that like...
He's broken. Ugh. He has caused something horrible to happen to people that he loved. Remember, that's why he almost fell to the dark side, is because he was worried about the people he loved. That's what hits him hardest. Like, Vader didn't even threaten his sister. All Vader said was, hey, maybe she'll turn to the dark side. And he went, Darth! Die!
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. The next thing is just a little minor thing that I was like, really, guys? Have you seen a Star Wars movie? The laser bolts from the Supremacy doing their arced trajectory to hit the Raddus. Nah, it was just a little thing, and they looked pretty. They sure looked pretty, and I loved the laser bolts hitting the shields on the Raddus.
Yeah, I liked
that. Looked so beautiful. But
the
the arc thing, I was like, guys, it's laser bolts. It's in space. Just make them go straight.
That's the other thing, though, is that my understanding of how the laser bolts work in Star Wars is they're not actually lasers. They're packets
They're charged. Yeah, there's actually a bullet in there, basically.
Well, it was like a compressed gas, wasn't it? Yeah, so it's not like a hard slug.
And it depends on what, like, Chewie's is actually firing metal.
Yeah.
Within those beams, there isn't actually a metal projectile.
Yeah.
So some of it varies from...
It's in space. It shouldn't have that trajectory.
But it's also, I feel like that's kind of small.
I mean, it is. He said that. Yeah. He said that going in.
So they had a fisheye lens on the camera. Come on.
Yeah.
We'll get to fisheye in a minute. Well, towards the end. Anyway, Chewie's roast porg gag. The roast
you don't
birds.
like the humor. Got it.
It felt like they were like, "Oh, you thought that was funny, huh? Here it is again. Here it is again. Here it is again."
But see. I was actually looking at that as I was watching it the last time through. One thing that a lot of filmmakers and storytellers do is that they immediately after a serious scene, they give you a gag to lighten the movie.
It's a scene sequence. Right? You're trying to lighten. And
that's what that served.
And I know, and I understand what that serves. What bothered me about that, and honestly, what bothered me too most about the holding for Hux lines is that it was too much. The first time he did that, I was like, oh. That was actually kind of funny. That was clever.
That's fair.
And then he does it again. And he does it again. And he does it 4 times.
The thing with humor is one of the most subjective things you're ever going to put in anything. Yeah.
And so
a lot of the humor pushed me slightly too far, but it was never over the top.
And so with Chewie, he has already seen the cute animals making their puppy eyes at him and murdered 2 of them. There's one on the roast and one in his hand that he's about to eat. He's clearly overcome the puppy eyes. And then there's one looking at him like, are you really going to eat it? And he growls. And the first time they did it, I was like, oh, that's going to be funny. And I laughed. I was like, okay, that is funny. And then I was like, oh, yep, there it is again. And there it is again a third time. That's too much. It was funny the first time, and now it's not.
It actually the other 2 times. Twice. I counted.
Oh, okay. But,
yeah. And it's the quivering lip of the porg this time.
It is.
It's so dumb.
And also, Chewie still eats that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't show him.
Yeah. No, he puts it down.
No, he doesn't. All he did, I was looking for it because you've complained about this before. All he does is lower it slightly, just.
Yeah.
He still eats that.
I hope he hunts them all down and eats them. I want extinction of porgs.
No, they're still going to be on the ship in the next
I
love the porgs.
I do not.
Yeah, that's because you're an old curmudgeon. Old curmudgeons didn't like the Ewoks either.
I love the Ewoks.
Yeah, no, you weren't an old curmudgeon when you discovered the Ewoks. Have you ever watched How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
Do you know the Ewok line?
No.
The Ewok line is how you can tell whether or not a woman is too old to date. Because if she likes Ewoks, then that means she was this age or younger when the Return of the Jedi came out. And if she doesn't like Ewoks, it means she's this age or older when that came out. And it's silly and very stupid and sexist, but it is a funny joke.
But it's not wrong because I do that with people's ages when I tell them I make video games. Yeah. There is a nice hard line with everyone that's about my age or younger gets excited. Everyone about my age or older
thinks you're wasting your life.
Yeah, rolls their eyes. Yeah,
yep.
So I mean, it's really
those sort of things happen, but it is a true tendency that most adults were at the very least not thrilled with the Ewoks. Kids loved them. We all loved them. We all grew up with them.
And this is okay. So the next thing is kind of similar to the mistake versus a plot hole. But I think it errs more on the side of plot hole than mistake, is why didn't R2 show his message to Luke right away? Right? R2 is arguably one of the people most anxious to find Luke, I would say. I mean, based on their relationship and what it shows in Episode 7, that we found Luke and that's what wakes him up and he's ready to go. I mean, and Luke and R2, I think it's probably safe to say they have a pretty good relationship, you know?
It is what convinces him to start.
It is what convinces him to go.
He does. Luke,
not initially. It's
I would rephrase this. why doesn't R2 go out with Rey to fight?
That's what I mean. It's like that very
Yeah.
first, like, hey, everybody's here, everybody off the Falcon, let's go get Luke and bring him back.
It's like the sort of thing. It's like the why does Leia hug Rey at the end of Force Awakens
Yeah.
and not Chewie?
Right.
And
Like,
this
it
is a
doesn't make
small
sense,
thing, and that's why
but-
I'm saying, like, because people, you, Chris, you, Ross, me, Kyler, like, we all make mistakes in our life. If they were to make a movie, I'm sure there would be people that are like, well, why did Kyler do that? That's a plot hole. Well, because I'm an imperfect person who doesn't know everything, and I forget lots of crap. So my life is full of plot holes, if you will. So this is one of those things where I'm like, it could be just a simple mistake of we didn't think about it, but I'm going, here's a character who very much cares about Luke, who's been invested for 30 years trying to find Luke. They find Luke, they go to Luke, and he's like, nah, bro, I'll stay on the ship. You know, to me, I'm just
Can't
like,
handle
they
the
could
stairs.
They could have.
He's old.
Oh, he's got the rockets though.
No, he
So
used
two-
to have the rockets.
Those
They
broke.
took them out. They
Yeah.
took those out between 3 and 4
in canon.
in canon.
Okay.
Did they? Was it in canon?
Well,
Is it official?
that's word of George.
Okay.
That's word of George
George.
from one of the commentaries.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, I will accept it then. It's George canon.
G canon.
G canon. There we go.
Yeah.
I know that now.
Yeah. So here's my adapted dialogue. Poe, what's your plan? Holdo, screw you. It just seems, and Chris, I know he's bursting to give his reply to this. So, it's actually a pretty good
I've
reply.
got a lot of stuff with Poe and Holdo. But
Yeah, Holdo, I think, was poorly handled as a character.
I think she was excellent with one glaring flaw, but we'll get to that in a minute. You
And
go ahead.
I think in a lot of ways she was really good, and I have very mixed feelings about Holdo. Like, there are some things where I'm like, God, I really like that aspect of you. Like, the fact that she does come in and is a no-nonsense, I'm going to take hold, I need everybody to kick their butts in gear, we got to do this, we got to go save each other, save the fleet. I very much like that aspect of her, but in a life and death situation where it's literally, if things don't go perfectly for the next, hour or two, we are all of us dead. To then hold out and be like, nah, bro, go screw you. I'm not going to tell you anything.
Well, I'm fine with her doing that to Poe personally, but the very fact that he undermines the rest of the crew so easily that it's obvious that none of them knew what was going on. I actually read a very interesting article the other night by a former military tactician or something like that was talking about the military errors on both sides of this battle. And it was fascinating because I went into it expecting him to be like, this is all so unrealistic. And actually what he was doing is going like, oh man, this happens all the time. Like these are some classic blunders, land war in Asia and then this. And it was
Land war in Asia followed by Last Jedi.
But he's just going through and saying like, she's as a military commander, she is not doing her best here. Like there are some, and he referenced like the Navy's rules of leadership that apparently number 2 is basically like keep your people informed, and she could have done better at that, and I'm fine with that. Like he seemed fine with that. He was just like, there are people who don't do this well. That happens all the time. It's perfectly realistic. My frustration is that the movie doesn't expect me to see her behavior as a flaw in any way.
Yes.
And that is the only thing. Like,
That's
her choosing not to share with Poe. Yeah, sure. This dude has demonstrated a callous regard disregard for life. He is reckless. He is impulsive. He just got massively demoted and then straight up told her that he was a commander to her face, clearly hoping that she's going to not realize that he got demoted.
On that one, I could see that just being human error, that he's used to being commander.
That could be.
So
that could be. But I could also understand why she would take it as...
Right.
Because her response is very clearly like,
Yeah.
you got demoted.
Yeah.
Nice try. And so I could... And that's totally understandable on her part to assume he's doing that. I did. And so all of that, I'm fine with. I am fine with load up the human error. I love the moral gray areas. I love one person being right about something but wrong about something else while someone else is right about something but wrong about the other thing. But it's the fact that the movie and Rian Johnson clearly expect us to go, oh, she's so good. She's such a hero. And I'm like, no, she's flawed, which I love. I love that she's flawed. I love that you wrote a flawed character instead of what you wrote was a flawed character instead of what you were trying to write, which was a perfect woman knows everything and corrects the man who does it. Like one of the reviews I read about this was talking about how, well, it's good to see Star Wars acknowledging that women are always right and men are always wrong. And I was like, I didn't see your face when you were writing this, but reading this, I feel like you're saying that with a straight face. Which, sure, that happens plenty. So does the opposite, because we're all people. And that's what I loved about this, is I was watching it and I was going, yes! Like, she is right about so much, but she's handling it so poorly in so many ways. Yes, I love this nuance. And I wanted Leia to wake up and be like, okay, Holdo, maybe next time not do this. Yeah. You could have done better there.
And that's actually one of the points from Vito's YouTube video that I was like, you articulated that pretty well. The whole, like, clearly it's a pretty ham-fisted, politically correct message that she's a woman and he's a man and we need to just believe women and stop mansplaining Poe.
And lots of his behavior is classic, alpha male behavior that is problematic. And that's well done. All of that is well done. It's my frustration is like, in a movie that has so much nuance, that ended up so heavy-handed.
Well, and
I would have rather
as Vito says, he's like, what is the moral of this whole Holdo versus Poe storyline? What, that you should just be subservient and submit to authority and follow orders no matter what? Geez, who does that sound like? First Order? It's like...
Well, and to be fair, in a military situation, that's going to be a good chunk of what you do. But
the message, though, to everyone, military or not, in that is, well, she's in charge and he needs to get in place and follow orders. He needs to stop asking questions. It is
heavy-handed, yes. I agree on that
It's a little bit much.
But I like everything else. Like, in fact, I used to dislike it a lot more when I first watched it. I was just sort of like, we're doing another of these cliche, the soldier needs to learn his place sort of thing. I have seen so many of these. I don't care. And the more I've watched it over time, the more I've been like, I love 99% of this. It's just that final bit where you expect me to just unilaterally take her side instead of being like, she is also a flawed person with her own problems, but that didn't make her wrong.
Yeah.
It just made her flawed in her execution, which is fine. We're all human. So that is my... And for me, it's one of those things that listeners, if you are not familiar with the term headcanon, which if you're listening to this, you're massive geeks, and you probably are. Headcanon is when there is some explanation or some story bit or some background detail that someone came up with or that you thought up that's not at all canon. It's not in the movie. It's not anywhere. But you like it.
It's end canon.
Yeah, but you like it. So in your head, that is canon. That is the explanation. And one of the ways I enjoy movies I like but have problems, or even movies that are massively problematic left and right, is by headcanoning a lot of what happened into what I like. And that's one of those things that I just go, you know what? In my headcanon, Leia did address that with Holdo. Mm-hmm. And we weren't expected to be unilaterally on her side. And now I'm good. So
fair enough.
That's how that works for me. Is the sort of thing that I would do with Rogue One, except that it never got me to a point where I
this is...
hold on. Before we move on too much, we've discussed mostly everything I wanted to discuss on this topic, except that the person I did talk to regarding this choice, that actually kind of was his thing, is that it was interesting to me that you had commented when we were talking about this, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that most of the people you talked to had talked about how poor a leader Holdo
I've heard a lot of military people complaining about her behavior.
Because and I had heard mostly that it wasn't her behavior, but it was his. I mean,
his behavior's awful. Like, he deserved way worse than he got in that military situation.
See, and that's all what they said, is that, I mean, that first altercation, he probably should have been thrown in the brig, you know? And so that's...
we could have cut out a useless middle arc if she had.
It's true.
I won't argue with that,
but no, that was the gist of the conversation I had with my...
Yeah, I have heard a lot of that from people, too. And that was the general complaint was, she's not a good leader, but it expects me to believe she is. He is an awful subordinate and is not getting treated like a subordinate behaving that way should, even in a life or death situation. And I mean, heck, Rose tases Finn for trying to desert. He should have got tased too.
I think a lot of problems, like, there would have been no mutiny if she had been like, look, Poe, I have a plan, we're gonna make it out okay.
But you know
I'm not sharing it with you, though.
That mutiny was completely centered around people that Poe had been talking to.
Yes.
Right? Everyone else on the crew did what they were asked to.
But a lot of the bridge crew turned against her as well.
Yeah.
And that's...
Well, that's what I mean. Is those are the people he was talking to.
Yeah. I will also add, though, in the defense of this, one thing that Jenny Nicholson, did I say her name was? Jenny Nicholson said that I loved was where she was defending Holdo's choice to not tell Poe, which I don't really think needs defense, but I liked her defense where she pointed out where she's just like,
I was hoping you'd
maybe
forgotten about this.
No, of course not. She's like, maybe Holdo was worried that if she told people it might get out somehow and get to the First Order. Oh, like exactly what happened as soon as Poe found out.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why I'm saying I still think the mutiny could have been avoided and Poe could have been
Sure.
uninformed if she had just said, yes, people, I actually do have a plan
yeah,
that involves
they
us
could have.
surviving.
And like I said, I'm
I
fine
just
with
need
her
everybody
being
to follow
flawed
orders.
in that
Yeah.
way. Yeah, great. Flawed characters,
Yeah.
bring them on. But it obviously treats her as though she's not, and that's
Right.
the problem.
Yeah, okay, so right after that is when we meet Rose for the first time, and she's all crying and whatever, and we kind of already went through this when we talked about Rose's sister Paige at the beginning. My note here is, Rose, maybe if we cared about your sister, we would care about your tears. Because I just didn't. I just couldn't get into it. I'm like, yeah, so you're a rebel crying, so what?
See, so another commentary thing. That commentary was very informative. If you haven't guessed already, originally Rose was written to be sort of an Eeyore type character, but when they got Kelly in there and actually acting it, she was just so bright and sunny and full of hope. They had
She
to
became
actually,
the fangirl stand-in.
yeah. That they actually Ryan went back and started rewriting scenes. Like he rewrote the scene with Finn there at the beginning because of that, because of how he could see how she was affecting the character. I immediately bought into it. I mean, those first couple of minutes, even though seeing her kind of crying, I took her as that sort of personality, the bright and sunny.
I liked it. Like, I would say I didn't personally feel a lot of like, oh, poor girl, because I just don't react that way to most things. But what I did like about it is this is the first time I can remember that I have ever seen anyone in Star Wars cry over anyone that died in any of these Star Wars.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I like that. In fact, over the course of Rogue One, like, I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, Rogue One was the one that showed us how bad, what war is like. It's actually brought war to Star Wars. And I was like, Last Jedi did more to show me the dark side of war than Rogue One ever got to. Rogue One kills a lot of people that I didn't care about, so I don't care.
Yeah.
I cared more about the extraneous deaths in Last Jedi because there's all these people. The sheer numbers, it set me up right from the beginning to go, look how many people died in that first assault, and I kept doing it through the whole movie. Every time people are dying, when those ships are getting destroyed as they're flying down, I'm just sitting there going, holy cow, so many people are dying. And just the weight of how many people are going through the same thing when they're losing speeders at the end, just throughout this movie and how few are left at the end. All of that did far more to impress upon me just how devastating this was for everyone involved, and because we actually get to see a character who lost someone than I ever got in Rogue One.
Well, and you even get to see more reactions of kind of accepted sadness in with the other people that are sacrificing themselves throughout the rest of the movie.
So now, funny enough, one of my complaints with this movie is that he didn't give us enough of that. He pulled back too often. And I would have been happy to cut one or two of the humor attempts in order to give me more of that pain.
I would have been happier with that.
But I don't think Disney would have let him.
Yeah.
I think that's also one of the problems to take into account here, is that Disney has a certain amount of levity they require from a Star Wars film. And so that's basically why Rian Johnson has to balance the scales with so much humor, is because Disney's not going to let it through otherwise.
But Infinity War was awfully heavy.
With a lot of humorous moments, though.
Yeah.
I would say it's I'll have to rewatch that again. I haven't seen that since I saw it in the theater the first time. So when I started laughing as soon as the credits rolled and everybody hated me, it was delightful.
I'm going to skip
because I react to pain and sadness with laughter.
I'm going to skip my next one because the movie actually does answer this question later on.
We'll discuss it after that.
Okay. So, do you feel it? And then palm leaf. Slap.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah,
it was so cheap and gimmicky. It's where's the gravitas of Last Jedi or of Return of the Jedi? It's just, I don't know. It felt like a Marvel humor, like a Marvel gag.
See, for me, what that was is, so Luke has spent a lot of time training a group of Jedi, right? He is very familiar with how to teach. He knows the sort of issues that are going to come up. So, like I've mentioned with my teaching fencing, once you had taught for so long, I could just see the questions people were going to ask as they walked in the door. I knew what problems they were going to have, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so for me, that was Luke going, oh, okay. She's going to have this question. Yeah. And so he picked up that leaf knowing that he was going to run into this situation where she didn't know anything about
I can
the
also
Force.
hand wave that with a little bit of Luke's a hermit.
Yeah.
He's not a people person anymore.
But see, no,
Yeah.
for me, I would have done that sort of thing, but just as a pointing out, no, this is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
in a
so-
gentle-ish way.
The next one we already talked about, more Holdo stuff, but we covered that pretty well. So now to the middle arc, the Canto Bite, which, again, like, props to making it look good.
Yeah.
Can't say enough
I am
about
so
that.
happy to have seen this part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, really, really pretty.
Not just the pretty, but I like seeing a pleasure center. Like,
Yeah, it was a really...
we got lots
yes.
of the grandness and the cityscapes and the opera and all these other places.
It was
in
a
the
good
prequels,
facet of the universe.
but we've
to
never
see.
gone to Vegas. And
Yep.
and this is not Vegas. This is Ritz here.
This is Monte
This-
Carlo.
yeah, this is Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo,
Yeah.
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 And
Now,
like-
by the way, before we get too deep into this, I'm actually going to just let you know, Chris, I'm more on Kyler's side with this
That's
particular
fine.
point.
Bring it.
I felt that it probably, even though it's more cliched, I think I would have found like a mole subplot more interesting rather than a go find someone to help rescue us subplot. You know, sort of a mystery of like Poe and Finn and Rose wandering around the Radis going, is this person the mole? Like in which was the Star Trek movie where the girl Vulcan turned out to be a traitor?
It's my favorite one. It's Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country.
Star,
Yeah, see
Star Trek
that
6.
that sort of plot I would have thought would have been
Yeah,
amazing.
and that's a great plot, by the way. If you haven't seen Undiscovered Country, listener, do yourself a favor. It's great.
Well,
I'll
if
get
you
around
haven't
to
seen
it one
it,
of these days.
if you haven't seen it, forget what I just said about who was the bad guy.
Yeah.
I do not forget spoilers. Sorry, man.
But yeah, like, just the overarching note for this whole arc is, ham-fist your politics much? Because, boy, they just club you over the head with, you need to be a good person, you need to... War profiteers, they're the worst. I know we have actual slavers here selling people into and abusing people in slavery, but they are nothing compared to those who profit from war.
I'd say they're
You
one
know?
of the big focuses of how bad this place is the only actual demonstration other than, hey, look, let's look through this guy's ship. And them saying, oh, war profiteering, war, is, hey, there's slavery here too. Like the actual physical visual demonstration, the show, not the tell that we're given is slavery and animal abuse.
Yeah.
Because, hey,
And then
as long
that's
as we
my
can
other
condense
thing
them into
too,
one.
is Rose is like, I know, let's do a good thing. Let's set the animals free, but screw these kids that are in slavery.
Okay. Give me everything you've got on Canto Bight, and then I will address the entire thing as you.
Yeah.
I didn't take it quite as heavy-handed as Kyler did. I mean, I felt it was just kind of weird.
I thought it was weird the first time, but then I watched it the second time, and I went, they freed the animals to escape. Like,
Yeah.
period.
Well,
that they took they rode the
yeah.
animals away. Like, there is no sense of,
Well,
we have to free them.
No,
to
but
save
there
them.
is though, because Rose's line in the grass when she's like, when Finn's like, "Oh, it's better now," and then she takes his hat off. No, now it is. It's like, oh my gosh, Disney,
after they have
really?
failed to escape and they realize, well, we're not going to get out, but at least we got this out of it.
Oh, also, fun fact here: I just finished reading the Canto Bight book, the new canon book. It's like 4 or 5 kind of shorter stories. Very good overall.
With the one exception, wasn't that the one that you were? There was one you were really bothered by. Oh no, that was it.
Anyway, yeah. Oh no, that was the Legends of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, the Canto Bight one was good, but it talks about how Canto Bight, or the planet of Canto, is a desert. So everything Canto Bight is this jewel in the desert, and the ocean is an artificial ocean. So yeah, you set those animals free, but they are still confined.
Yeah.
In
Are
essence.
they native to this planet?
No.
Okay.
They're not.
so
I'm like, you
that makes
set
a lot
them
more
free
sense.
temporarily. It's like, good, you did a good deed. Pat yourself on the back. Those animals are going to be captured in a day.
That makes a lot more sense why I when I was watching it last night and Maz is just like, he's in the casino on Canto Bight, and I was like, the casino? On this planet? Maz? Really?
Yeah.
Unspecific much?
Oh, yeah.
So that makes a lot more sense.
Not only is it a
Thanks.
desert planet, it's the only city on the planet.
that
And
makes
when
a
she
lot
says
more
the
sense.
casino, it's because there is like the Grand Casino of Canto Bight, and then there are like 2 other ones, and
Right.
that's it. So when you say the casino on Canto Bight,
People know
you
what you're
know
doing.
it's that one.
Okay, you were going to say
Anyway.
I was going to say a couple things that you reminded me of something I was going to talk about.
yes.
So the first thing that I was going to talk about was the Fafirs, the horsey things.
Yeah.
Just that scene just
cat
felt
things.
like it took too long.
Yes, I agree.
I went through and I actually looked at it as I was watching again, like the time codes. It only lasts about like a minute and a half.
Oh, really?
I know.
It seems longer than
I know,
that.
that was exactly my thought too, is it feels like it just kind of
It
drags
honestly,
on for
it
some reason.
reminds me. I guess a minute and a half is not that long, but to me, it felt like the pod race in episode 1, where you're going, "This looks pretty and it's cool, but you're tapping your watch. Can we be done already? Can we move on?" You know what I mean? It had that kind of feel. It felt way longer.
It felt that
than
way
a
to me the
minute and a
first
little bit.
time. Last night when I watched it, not at all.
And that's, I think that's to be expected.
Yeah, I'm used to it at this
I
point.
mentioned
It's
in
less
the
of
prequel episode that we did, in the theater, watching Darth Maul hold up his double-sided lightsaber, extend one side, extend the other, that seemed to take forever. That I was just watching him, And then I saw a clip of it today, and I'm like, holy crap, it's about 3 seconds. I would have sworn on a stack of Bibles a mile high as a kid that it was 20 seconds, that he's holding it, extending the other side. And it's like 3 or 4 seconds. So I'm going, okay, so in reality, the Fathir race isn't that long, but it certainly felt that along, in the first couple times watching
And I was trying to figure out why, because normally things like that, there isn't usually enough going on to keep your interest, or maybe the camera work is boring or something like that. But all those I didn't have complaints with as far as
Ryan
keeping
Johnson
the
doesn't
pace.
do boring camera work.
Yeah, but so I don't know why for some reason, and it felt like
Maybe it's because the whole story arc was boring.
hush, because that was also the comment that my wife Carrie made coming out of the theater, was how she felt like they were busting through a lot more walls, but I counted there's 2.
Yeah.
They bust through the first
that's
window.
Another thing too.
There's
feels
one wall,
like
but for some reason in my mind, it happened
there's a
dozen
lot
times.
more ancillary destruction. Like
Yeah.
they destroy cars and
the piano,
hovercraft and
yeah.
other stuff. But the only things they actually burst through are those 2. And a whole lot
that's
of
my
complaints.
complaint.
I thought too, the first time I watched it, I thought they broke through a brick wall, and I'm like, those are some fetching strong animals.
And you know
but
what?
on the rewatch, it's not. They break through basically like a stained glass window with
Right.
like a little pillar thing in the middle,
Right.
And then they crash through like a partition almost, and then
Which
that
I was
leads out
relieved to
into
see,
an alley.
because the
So,
first time I watched that was one of my things I was like, really?
yeah,
In super space future long ago, Star Wars, we can't build stuff that can withstand that? Like,
Yeah.
really? But
Yeah,
as I
but
watched
this
it the
stuff
second
is
time, I was
actually
like,
kind
the
of
third time, I was
delicate
like, you know what?
stuff,
No,
so-
that's fair. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see them breaking
So
that.
that was one thing.
What
that
I don't
bothered me
buy so much
initially.
is Finn and Rose not being all cut up to hell after that.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
they
those
should
lights.
be. Yeah,
But I mean, that's a classic problem with anyone busting through glass in almost any
yeah,
movie,
that's
so-
so.
My
And
other-
that's such a common trope too, that they're unscathed, that I didn't
Yeah.
even notice that until you brought it up. just
Turns
now.
out almost all movie heroes have that prestige class that Elin has in
Yeah.
the stick thing. Don't take glass damage. So.
And then my other complaint with this sequence is them Maz giving them the tip off.
It was so
What?
unnecessary.
Other than just to kind of remind you that this character is there.
I would
yeah,
say
it
it's
was just
basically
like-
because how can we waste having Ninja? What's her name?
Lupita.
Yeah. I was, sorry,
No,
I went-
Lupita
I was
Nyong'o or
veering
something like
off
that.
towards an author. Lupita Nyong'o.
just-
We can't waste her. We've got her contracted for 3 movies here, so we
Yeah.
got to use her.
Yeah.
It is a little forced, yeah.
But also, it was about to be worse because, again, commentary tidbit. Apparently, the way that Ryan Johnson initially had it was that Maz was going to be on the cruiser with them.
I think
For
that
whatever
would have
reason, she wasn't
been
gonna be there.
even easier then. I think that would have made more sense.
But why would she? all
But
of a
she would
sudden,
have been able to get them in. Although they could have just said, nope, I can't do that. So that's easy to waive.
Yeah. But why is she with the Resistance, especially when like the timetable between Last Jedi
It's been a week. Yeah.
and Force Awakens it's been days.
Well, her castle was destroyed.
I believe canonically it has been a week.
It was a solid week.
Not since the very end, because that includes Rey's travel time is that
Right.
week.
Yeah.
And so, but basically it's been a week since Starkiller Base was destroyed.
Yes. And so, but I could see her joining up with the Resistance, that maybe the First Order was like, well, you were harboring these guys, so
Yeah,
you must
they
be with them. We're
drove
going to
her
put you on
into
the...
the
you know,
nearest
so I can
safety,
see
but-
that pretty easily.
I guess
but
that does make sense, but still, I don't know.
It would have cleaned up that middle arc a little bit
Yeah.
better, though.
I'm just wondering how they knew how to contact her. Like Finn definitely didn't get her contact info, so maybe Poe already
Poe
had
already
it.
knew her?
I
Yeah.
don't
Or
know.
Leia. I mean, Leia's...
Yeah,
knows
Leia's
everybody.
unconscious, but they
unconscious
just
at the
went
time.
through her Rolodex. While she's
Yeah,
out.
they just broke into Leia's office. Ah, there's the Rolodex.
Headcanon accepted.
doesn't Poe say the line, "I only know of one person," and then the next thing is you see them talking to Maz?
It was
Isn't that
something
how that
along
goes?
the lines of, "But we need someone who could do this," and I don't know, like, who would
Yeah.
know someone. And
Yeah,
then
who
they
knows?
answer that.
Yeah.
After that, it goes back to the island.
So hold on, are we? Is
Oh
there any,
yeah, that's right. You've got to defend it.
yeah. Anything else you got?
I don't think
think
so. I mean,
Okay.
DJ's a little convenient as a character.
Yeah, I also felt that, but at the same time, I was like, it's Star Wars.
yeah.
I mean, convenient that Luke landed on
Well-
Dagobah within walking distance of Yoda.
Yeah.
Convenient that those
Yeah, and
droids
that's one of
landed
those
on
little-
the planet and then ended up in Luke's hands.
And that's exactly how I
Convenient,
feel about DJs. It's like, yeah, it's convenient, but whatever.
Well, one of the most consistent flaws in Star Wars, just realism speaking, is Star Wars' lack of understanding of probability and how big space really is.
But that's just stories in general.
That is part of stories in general.
Yeah.
There is a lot of that all over. But Star Wars, I personally, as much as I love Star Wars is just a little step above average on that, whereas there's a lot of convenience in Star
Yeah.
Wars. And DJ is quite convenient. In fact, he was worse for me before I watched last night. Because I was like, oh, so Maz only knows one person in the galaxy who can do this, and you just conveniently happen upon another in the same town in the cell you happen to get thrown on?
Yeah.
And this time I noticed that what Maz says is, there's only one person in the galaxy other than me that I trust to do that job. Not that
Right.
there's only one person who can do it.
That's,
And they go out of their way to explain that DJ has a history with the First Order, and that's why he's familiar with their code and stuff. And I was like, okay, it's still ludicrously improbable, but so is a lot of stuff in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I can suspend, my disbelief isn't suspended, but I can ignore that. You know. So, Canto Bight. What Canto Bight does for this movie. Finn's entire character arc, Finn evolving into a better person, it's Canto Bight essential to that. It is also one of the clearest expressions of the theme of the movie that gets repeated over and over again. Is this whole sequence, both Canto Bight and then on the on Snoke ships later. So Finn's character arc. Finn in the first movie has exactly two priorities. Keep it simple because you're writing characters. He has some conflict with these here and there because he's a complex character, but for the most part, he is first afraid for his own self and is concerned for saving himself because he's afraid of the First Order. He's very brave, actually, as long as the First Order is not involved. It's whenever the First Order gets involved that he starts freaking out and saying, nope, I'm going to leave. Second, he cares about Rey.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only person the only friend he's really got until he finds out Poe's still alive. She's quite attractive. And he likes, and no one has ever looked at him the way she looked at him.
Right.
And hey, I get that. And that's the only thing that can counteract his problems with the First Order is when Rey is in danger. In fact, he lies to her, claims to be from the Resistance because he likes how she looks at him. He likes feeling like a hero. He thinks it's awesome. But when they get to see Maz, his whole duty to Poe is done. Like, he's got the droid at least far enough that someone can get the droid to the Resistance. And it's when Maz starts talking, well, we have to fight the First Order. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to do this. And that's what finally breaks his resolve. Even in front of Rey, he breaks down and says, no. It cannot be done. Like, you people don't understand what you're talking about like I do. And he leaves, even though it means losing all of the face he's gained with Rey. And it hurts him. And it's only, he comes back he comes running back when the First Order destroys the Hosnian system. At which, as I was watching it Sunday night, it was this moment too where I was like, I almost feel like Poe came running back. Like, the look on his face there, it was almost gleeful. Like, not really, but it was lighter than everyone else. Everyone else is watching like, oh my gosh, did these planets get destroyed? And I feel like he's almost running back to go, see? What did I tell you? Like, which also, kudos to the First Order for actually managing to achieve one of their strategic objectives with their giant... Like, I had this moment earlier today. I was working, I'm shelving books, and all of a sudden I was like, the Death Star never achieved a single strategic objective.
well, Alderaan.
Alderaan wasn't a strategic
wasn't
objective.
Yeah.
Strategic. Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Not really. It
Fear is
was
strategy.
causing, no, it was
Yeah.
Tarkin scaring Leia. It
Yeah.
was Tarkin causing fear. But every strategic objective, let's wipe out the rebel base,
Yeah.
hey, let's rebuild this and let's wipe out the rebels, it always got destroyed before it could actually do anything that it was intended to do.
It also might help one thing that wasn't clear to me until I started reading the books, the Hosnian system is now the seat of government.
Yeah.
Which
Yes,
they don't
they-
really point out.
They
in Force
rotate.
Awakens.
They rotate the seat of government every few years, and it was at that time located on Hosnium Prime.
Right.
Bad luck for them.
Yep.
Anyway, so Finn comes running back. Almost,
Well, but that's why it was targeted.
Yeah, no, I
So-
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but bad luck that they were there at that time. But so Finn comes running back, and it's almost with this air of like, see, do you believe me now? And then he realizes Rey is missing. That's the only reason he sticks around is, where is Rey? What's going on? Then he sees her get captured. Then he goes in. Now, I've read some complaints online of people complaining like, oh, so he wakes up and he's just like he was before? And I'm like, of course he was. See, now, if the writers of Rogue One had written this, he would have woken up and just said, I'm a rebel now. For no reason at all, because they don't understand character development. But Rian Johnson actually does
Save it for the
understand
episode,
character
man.
development. Oh, I'll get that. Rian Johnson actually does understand
You
character
listeners are in
development.
for such a treat.
Yeah, something like that. I'm sorry, guys, but I've got a captive audience. I guess you could all just turn it off, but
Please don't.
yeah, please don't. But I mean, heck, half of you probably already turned this one off because you don't like the stuff we're saying about Last Jedi. But so he wakes up and he's still the same person. His very first question is, where is Rey? Because that's his number one priority. And he's fine with helping them. He's all right. Okay, Rey's not here. What do we do in the meantime? It isn't till all the leadership gets killed, Leia's barely alive, struggling to survive, that he goes, nope, this is a lost cause. I'm leaving again. I've got to get Rey. I've got to get this beacon out of here as part of it. I've got to get Rey to safety. And so he behaves exactly like he always has. He hasn't changed significantly. There's a bit more willingness. He's gone up against the First Order once and managed it. He got to get in Phasma's face and be all like, who's in charge now? Which I'm sure was very uplifting for him, even though it is over the top. And so once he gets stopped by Rose, and then they hit on, hey, this could potentially be a working plan. And he shows that he has grown a little bit, even though his priorities are more or less the same. He's willing to hand off Rey's safety to Poe temporarily while he goes to help his other friend, because these are the only friends he has in the galaxy, especially since his old friends have already tried to murder him on occasion, and he's murdered a lot of them. But so he gets to Canto Bight, and he's delighted. I saw a couple complaints about like, oh, he just becomes so juvenile, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, Canto Bight is everything Finn wants. It is a place removed from the war. It is beautiful. It looks amazing. It looks fun. All these things that he has never been allowed to have because he's been raised forcibly in this horrible military environment, and he's justifiably thrilled with it. Rose immediately, and he asks Rose, he's like, why do you like this place? How can you not? And she points out, because it's horrible in these ways. And he goes, and the reason it gets across to him when she says that is because she doesn't say, they're profiteering on both sides. Maybe she doesn't even know, because she's young. She's also probably innocent enough to assume these are bad guys helping the First Order,
right?
Because she's got a more black and white view of the universe. But she says it's the First Order, and that immediately helps him go, oh, I don't like the First Order. I don't like these people if they're helping the First Order, because he's still got a very simplistic black and white view of the universe. It's the First Order is bad, and that's all there is. He doesn't even have black and white universe. There's just black and stay away from the black. And so they end up in prison, which further increases his dislike of this place. They end up accidentally breaking out. They do a lot of destruction. It's Poe and Rose taking out their frustrations on this place because they're still kind of juvenile. She doesn't really get a chance to. She doesn't have an arc, which is my biggest complaint about this movie we'll get to later.
Yeah, Rose was criminally
No, it's not just Rogue.
Oh.
It's every woman in this film doesn't have an arc, and that's bad. But but they're taking that out. They haven't grown yet. So then they get rescued by DJ. They're on that ship, and he has his conversation with DJ where DJ tells him, not just stay out of it, don't sign up. It's a lose-lose situation. He gets all his own feelings echoed back to him by someone he does not like. And it's discomforting. Mm-hmm. It's obviously discomforting to him. You can see it on his face that he's sitting there going, oh. And he also finds out that these war profiteers, not just the villains he thought, they're also supplying. They are villains, but they're profiteering off both sides. It makes them more gray. It makes them, in some ways, more unpleasant for him. It makes him more uncomfortable with all of this. Then he gets betrayed by DJ. Right after a really nice moment where he thought, hey, DJ just gave back her amulet, and it looked like he was a good guy, and now I find out that just because he's capable of being good doesn't mean he's not capable of being horrible. And DJ's and he looks at DJ and realizes that's where I was going. Like, that's neutrality here. That's what I was going to be, and I don't want to be that. And he says to him, like, no, you're doing the wrong thing here. That's where he realizes it. And DJ goes, maybe, which I love that line.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly how I would respond there. But
it's funny how many things we're commenting on are the same things that Ryan talked about in the thing, because that maybe was, what was the actor's name?
Benicio del Toro.
That was his idea. Because
I believe it. I love Benicio.
Ryan goes, yeah, I had something really generic in there, like, you know, just whatever cliched line, but then
I love you
Benicio
too.
came up. Yeah. Benicio
Actually,
came
I
up.
would have loved that line there, but
But yeah, Benicio came up and was like, why don't we just say maybe? And Ryan goes, yes, that's so much better than what I had.
it's the grace. It's what he represents.
Yeah.
Maybe. I could, maybe.
He's
I'll
true
be
neutral,
wrong.
huh?
He is true neutral.
Before we go on too far, yeah, I did want to point that out as that's one of the reasons why I like this movie, is because of DJ's showing Finn that these profiteers are supplying both sides. There isn't just a black and white, which is all we've really had in Star Wars up to this point.
I love my grays, but what I love even more than grays is giving us lots of grays, but also acknowledging that the existence of gray does not eliminate the existence of black and white.
Right.
And that is one of my favorite things about The Last Jedi, jumping ahead to the things I like, is that it manages to introduce a whole host of grays without abandoning that white and black are still valid and still exist. Just because there are so many grays and because people are conflicted and can be good and bad
50 Shades?
does not does not mean that there aren't genuinely bad guys and genuinely good guys. But and that's Finn's arc. Is Finn finally realizes that that's why you get that line. We're always scum, rebel scum. Is him finally saying, no, I'm one of them. I am going to fight. And then he takes it too far. And he has to be pulled back a little bit because Finn has consistently shown us that when he latches onto something, he runs with it. He does that throughout both of these movies. And so we finally also get him to see him grow up slightly in having someone tell him, whoa. Just because we're gung-ho about this doesn't mean we have to be 150%. Back up a bit. He has someone rein him in that way too. It is Finn's entire character arc. He has a very lovely arc from start to finish that builds throughout all of this. It is very tied into the place that Canto Bight is, showing what he likes and what he wanted. And we needed that. Number two there was that it's an expression of the film's theme. This film is about failure. It is about coming back from failure, and they fail hard. Over and over again. They fail to get the codebreaker. They end up with a discount knockoff codebreaker, and that comes back to bite them. They fail to successfully escape from jail. The only reason they do that is because DJ first got them out and then came and saved them again. And then they fail to get the tracker down for the 6 minutes that it was supposed to go down. And that failure ends up costing the Resistance horribly. They fail over and over and over. It is the most consistent demonstration of failure happening and it being devastating and horrible, but you can still pick up from it. Good things can still, because Finn learns from his failure. And that's one of the themes of this movie, is learning from your failure. And Finn is a nice slow build of failing and learning from your failure and letting it grow you into a better person. And he does that throughout the movie. It's very consistent. It's very strong. A lot of people complain about Canto Bight because, it didn't do anything. All they did was fail. That's the point. That's literally the point of the movie. Yoda spells it out for us.
Yeah.
And that is what Canto Bight does for us. And then beyond that, I also really like seeing this part of the Star Wars universe. Yeah. I like seeing the glitz and glam. I like all of that. There is some silly stuff. It is super convenient that DJ's there. DJ himself. Oh, that's the other thing. I'll get into that later as a whole unit. But
I will admit then to the listeners that at least on this aspect of it, Chris has convinced me.
I was going to say I am more positive about Canto Bight than what I was. Yes,
that was honestly, I'm going to say that was the one thing I was hopeful that I really could convince anyone of, because I didn't even see it the first time. It wasn't until a second watch through that I was like, wait a minute, how did I miss this last time?
Okay, moving away from Canto Bight back to the island. Cheap slapstick humor of the falling rock hitting the wheelbarrow after Rey cuts it.
I like it.
I was like,
I like it too.
It just seems...
Obviously, that bothers you.
But like... And It wouldn't have bothered me if it was like the first thing, but where we'd already had so much slapstick that this is just one more thing.
Honestly, the only thing about that scene that bothered me is that Rey doesn't say she's sorry.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, Rey, come on.
Well, you know, and it shows Rey's awkwardness, I think, you know, because she's still very much the
she's as much a hermit as he is.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. We talked about that one. Shirtless Kylo Ren.
I love shirtless Kylo Ren. Are you kidding me?
You don't like Ben Swallow? What are you talking about?
Ben Swallow, yeah. No,
Swallow.
I'm not gonna lie. When
so
they showed
awkward.
that,
Is it literally like just for the joke so that Rey can be like,
no,
put a shirt
Ryan
on?
Johnson said that it was part of it is he wanted to show that this is very uncomfortable for both of them. Like, and that is an uncomfortable
Put
situation.
him on the pooper.
Yeah, 'cause that would have been okay with Disney. But no, I'm not gonna lie. I love that because they showed that and I was like, holy crap, where were you hiding that, Adam Driver? I did not think you were that swole. What is this? Dude, man, you are a brick house. This is awesome.
Yeah.
He's just letting it all hang out.
I also gotta say, I will 100% up front say, I am biased when it comes to Adam Driver. I love him. I love him as an actor. I love him as a person. Like, he's an amazing guy. I love Adam Driver. So,
Yeah.
I'm not 100%. I'll take... Adam Driver's one of those that it's like, put him in anything, I will enjoy it. I don't care if it's bad. He's up there with Nathan Fillion and Timothy Omenson for me. Like,
Yeah.
This is the only thing I've
and
seen
Tina
him in.
Fey.
I didn't even know who he was before this.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him before this either, but now I've seen a couple things with him in it, and he's solid. And he gave this TED Talk that was talking about his time in the Marines.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I knew he was in the Marines. I
Yeah.
didn't see the TED Talk, though.
He's a great guy.
He is,
Like, He's
yeah.
a really good
Like,
person.
and another one of those, like, didn't have anything, moved to Hollywood, and then made it big stories, too. Actually, no, wait a minute. It was moved to Hollywood, didn't make it, moved back, did the Marines, then came back to Hollywood, I think
don't
is
know,
what
I
it
don't
was.
remember. It's been a while.
It
My
was kind of
favorite thing
complicated.
is the SNL skit where he's like, it's like the undercover boss.
Oh, yeah,
but,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I died on that. It's so funny.
But
Okay.
I get why a lot of people were uncomfortable with that, but I loved it.
Oh,
Well, and you know, it's the first time. Well, no, I can't say first time because George has designed some really kind of
Weird outfit.
weird outfits.
Rancor
yeah.
trainer.
Rancor. Well, there's Rancor trainer, and then there's like Padme's outfit in episode 2 when they're having the dinner. I mean, it's after the dinner where it's just like this like corset thing.
Yeah,
and
the
then
black,
choker.
it's-
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just like that was George's design. It seems like every time George designs something, it's very revealing. So
Yeah,
George.
George.
I was gonna say this is the first time we've really seen any serious skin in Star Wars, but that's not entirely true.
Yeah. It's
It's the first time it was front and center, though.
Leia, gold bikini.
Oh, that's
I was
right.
gonna say.
Oops.
It's the first time we've really given it, other than the Rancor trainer and with his pot belly hanging out under
His
the
dad
straps.
bod. Oh, there's
Yeah.
something I could cosplay.
Yeah.
Malakili,
Hey.
Rancor trainer. Just put that image in your heads, guys.
It is the first time one of the main male characters has given that fan service, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not even attracted to that, but dang. I loved
Okay,
it.
so here is one thing that I have mixed feelings on.
Cool.
I like some of it. I don't like other parts of it. Is Yoda. Just everything with Yoda. I'm sort of like, I don't like this, but I do like this. So Yoda's line is truly excellent. The greatest teacher failure is. I'm like, preach, Yoda, preach.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
failure, and I'm just being like dead serious in real life that we live in. Failure is a magnificent teacher. It teaches you more than
It is the
success.
teacher. It is.
It teaches you far more than success does. So I'm like, yeah, I like that Yoda points out, look, you idiot, Luke, you didn't listen to me when I told you you need to pass on all that you have learned, the success and the failures. That is what will help make your Jedi better than the last generation. So I'm like, yeah, Yoda, right on. Yoda calling lightning down is, I think, I don't know, it felt weird, but at the same time I'm going, well, it's
I would have been
apparently
more
it's a
weirded
force
by
power.
it if it weren't natural lightning, like he's
Right.
calling it from the clouds and not from his hands. And I kind of liked that. It's like, somehow, weirdly enough,
Well,
this feels cleaner than
yeah.
force
And
lightning.
actually, it kind of actually fits in with what they had done in Star Wars Rebels in Season 3. There's a Force creature called the Bendu, which is highly sensitive and massively powerful in the Force. And he basically represents balance in the Force. That's his whole thing, talking to Kanan in Rebels, is there's got to be balance. You, Kanan, are out of balance with yourself, which is why you're struggling to teach Ezra, which is why you aren't progressing in the Force the way you would like to, just for your own self, you need to find peace and balance in yourself before you can move on. Anyway, the Empire comes to this planet and sort of pisses off the Bendu, and he transforms himself literally into a force of nature, into this giant storm that rolls in and is literally lightning the AT-ATs and stormtroopers, and just he becomes a force of nature. So I'm going, okay, so we've seen powerful Force users literally bend the forces of the natural forces of nature around them to their will. So I didn't have I don't know, I just had it here in the notes of going, okay, so that's new, and I don't have a problem. This is one thing, too, that people freaked out about with Leia. When she gets blown up and she's pulling herself back into the ship. People are like, whoa, whatever, you can't survive that. And, this is a problem. She's flying through space, and I'm going, whoa. Because...
Viewers, you were right. You cannot survive that. She's not you.
No. Hold on. Another one of those Because Science episodes, the one that explained whatever it was I was talking about earlier. Apparently, in space, you do actually have about 90 seconds until
a minute
you
and a
are
half or so.
unable to be resuscitated.
And that's a regular person. That's not including somebody who can use the Force.
Well, and Leia was back in the ship within that 90 seconds.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. She was outside in space for less than the maximum duration of a regular person. That's not counting any Force abilities she used to shield herself or sustain herself with Force light energies, whatever. Yeah. And so I'm going, we can, and if we are going to allow Darth Maul to be completely bifurcated by a lightsaber and then come back for multiple seasons,
I don't allow. One of my headcanons is that never happened.
And Rebels, then we can begrudge Leia a few seconds of space travel. Then the other thing is like, flying through space, we've not seen that before. That's not a Force power. And I'm going, whoa. Literally every single Star Wars movie introduces a new Force power.
Well, and I'm also like, it's not a new Force power. She's pulling on the ship. And she is lighter than the ship. It's basic physics.
And that's my other point is it's not actually really a new Force power. She's pulling on the ship, and as he said, since she's lighter and smaller than the ship,
and there's no
she
air
moves
resistance
relative to the ship.
But it doesn't even have to have anything to do with the ship. We've seen Jedi push themselves around to increase their own speed, to jump extra high.
Yeah.
Why not push yourself back in a ship?
And that's one popular complaint that I saw on the internet that I
pulling
disagreed
herself
with.
back in the ship, Ross.
You
can push with the Force, but you can't pull. Unless you're Darth Vader pulling a blaster out of Han's hand, and then, it's Darth Vader, so we'll...
Or Luke pulling a lightsaber, or Rey and Kylo pulling the same lightsaber.
Or Jedi pulling any number of weapons out of... exactly. Yep. So that's
also,
one that was
I would
totally
like to say that what I was saying is not Leia can do it because she has the Force. I'm saying that Leia can do it because she is Leia. Leia can survive longer in space than Chuck Norris.
Whoa.
Deal with it.
Whoa, man. Whoa.
Save it for our Chuck Norris show. Okay. And then back to the bad dialogue that seems like Marvel. Page turners, they are not. From Yoda.
I thought it was fun. Because Yoda has had these little bits of levity throughout the series.
Him teaching with the younglings. Yeah. And when we first meet him and he's playing the buffoon.
Yeah.
And several points throughout Clone Wars.
And if anyone's going to be real about the boringness of a textbook, it's probably going to be Yoda.
And I'm going to say what I really like about Yoda's behavior there, what feels like unexpectedly real to it about me, is it feels like... You ever known someone only through work or something, or through some sort of very serious situation?
Your school teacher.
No, even more than that. Someone who's like really severe. I had a boss basically who was a former military guy, just a drill sergeant, and working at he was a great boss, but working under him was just intense, and he was just severe and serious all the time. And then he retired, and it was the most alarming 180 you've ever seen. He was downright goofy. It was like, and it really was just like this weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He was like, I'm not responsible for this anymore. Now I can do what I want. And he was just so much more lighthearted and just funny and silly to a degree that it was just like, are you even the same person? It was weird. And so Yoda laughing and kicking his feet and being silly in some ways, it actually felt very realistic to me. Like, he's gone through the ultimate retirement.
Yeah.
This world is not his responsibility anymore. He's happy to come back and help here and there. But it's not his circus, not his monkeys, not his circus.
Yeah.
He can do what he wants. And it felt realistic to me. It felt like someone who had gone through that. So,
All right. My next 3 points we've already gone over, so it's just more DJ and Holdo and Poe stuff. Just a little question here. So Snoke trains Kylo for why? If Kylo isn't strong enough? And I just was like, well, then why did you even bother with him then if...
No, I think that's more of the... Snoke is just a bad...
Snoke is an abusive trainer.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's telling him he's not good enough.
This was a
because
little
he's a
thing that
horrible
I thought
person who
was
does these
really
things.
stupid. A giant magnifying glass in your throne room with which you may view the battle. Really?
See, was it just a magnifying glass? I thought it was an actual view screen.
It was a magnifying
It's a
glass.
magnifying
At least
glass.
I identified it as that, and that was one that...
It's so dumb.
how do I keep reading? Jenny Nicholson commented on too, where she was just like I get framing that destruction perfectly. Like, he plans ahead, he's got the Force, he's aware of things.
And I'm totally cool
But who
with
put that there? Like, really? You planned it out that thoroughly?
Yeah, what is this, the 1800s? You're gonna whip out your spyglass to see how the battle's going?
But at the
you know?
same time, I'm like, if he's got the foresight to frame that perfectly out the window, he's got the foresight to have a magnifying glass ready.
It's so
Why
dumb.
not?
I hate it.
It doesn't bother me.
Oh my
I don't think
gosh.
it's any worse than it's far enough away, and I'm just like, I don't think it's any worse than the Emperor conveniently having a window right on the destruction of the Rebel fleet in Episode 6.
Yeah.
It is a little more over the top that's there, but I'm going to talk about the over the topness in this movie too later. So.
The red Power Rangers that show up in this movie.
They are very Power Ranger.
Oh my gosh.
But I will add that, like, a lot of people have complained because it's like, why didn't he just use the Knights of Rey there? And it's like, well, because then you'd all be whining about how the Knights of Rey just died and didn't do anything.
Knights of Ren.
Knights of Ren, thank you.
Yeah.
Knights of Rey.
I wish they were the Knights of Rey.
So Knights of Rey are coming up.
Yeah, that's episode 9. Yeah.
But you know what,
Knights
though?
of Rey versus the Knights of Rey.
See, but honestly, these guys make more sense than the guards in Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
It's not their existence, I think you're saying.
Yeah,
It's the posing.
Like, when I was a kid,
Okay.
all the other boys my age were super into Power Rangers.
Yo.
And
So was
I was not, because I'm like, they don't ever do anything. All they do is they wave their hands around, make these fun, like, karate poses, and then when they punch people, they're still, like, 4 feet away, and yet somehow their target still flies.
Exactly. They do stuff that I can actually do, unlike everybody else.
I always thought it was really stupid. I'm like,
No, you're right.
You're not even
It's-
close to hitting these guys, and they're pretending like they're being hit. And all of your fancy fighting is really you guys just waving your arms around and, like, doing some kicks in the air. You don't actually do anything. You're totally useless and pointless and stupid, so I never got into Power Rangers. Watching this Imperial Guard, I'm like, or the Praetorians, I guess is what they're called. I'm going, wow, you're Power Rangers. You're sitting there doing all these fancy moves without actually getting anything done. And especially that first scene when, like,
they're posing,
when they threaten, and then they go back or whatever. I'm just like, wow. Really, you're like a red Power Ranger clones.
I will address this with the rest of the overtime.
And then, so lots of flashy moves and bad choreography, really dumb, pointless weapons.
I would say yes, overly flashy. Bad choreography, no.
Right.
That has gotten a lot
yeah.
of praise for it, especially from actual fighters.
There
who
are
looking at that
some
and
of
going,
the
wow.
some of the things in there though I did like. One thing that I've always wondered, well, why don't they just do this? Like where they disengage the lightsaber, let it drop, and pick it up again. I'm like, okay, I'm glad somebody's doing that now, because I've always wondered, well, why don't you just do that? And then also when Rey chucks the lightsaber at Kylo and he catches it and right into the guy's face,
I do love that.
I was like, all right, that you get a gold star for that one. That was pretty cool. But for the most part, I felt like a lot of their fighting, I could not get the image of useless, stupid Power Rangers with flashing moves out of my head, and so it like ruined the whole thing for me.
See, I definitely agree the posing was a bit much, and as I was watching it last night, I did have a couple points in the fight where I was like, yep, that definitely carried, like, that posing carries through into this fight here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll acknowledge that.
The next thing
Definitely
is
doesn't ruin the fight for me,
Phasma's
but-
line, execution by a blaster is too good for them. I was like, wow, okay, cliche.
Yeah, it's over the top.
Rifling through the cliche drawer there and pulled this one out. Let's go, Chrome Dome. My note is, OMG, who wrote this? Lucas? Nope. It's so
Finn
bad.
did. Finn is bad at that.
It's so
consistent.
Oh.
It's consistently bad. I'm okay
We're
with
almost done, guys. We're almost done with the bad part. We're almost there.
No,
okay.
we're almost done with your first 6 pages of notes. We've still got these.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus what's remaining of our notes.
Yeah, plus Ross's notes and then all our good stuff.
We've covered a lot of Ross's
I think most of
notes,
mine's
though,
been
and-
covered.
and-
Yeah,
as
most
far
of
as
And then we got to do the good stuff, which there is, and I'm excited to get to that as well. So with these speeders, hey, let's put our skids down to make it easier to see us. let's get giant red clouds literally forming to a point where the enemy should fire on these.
Let's stabilize the ships.
Yeah.
They obviously
yeah.
weren't designed for primary combat.
I know. It just, I mean, now, and that's a thing where I'm going, does it look beautiful? Oh, heck yes.
Yes.
That scene when they're all I'm just going, wow, you look so good. I want to take you outside and have a baby, right? But it's so dumb. It's so dumb. Sorry, that was a 30 Rock reference.
If they were primary combat vehicles, then I'd be like, oh yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, these are just all they had.
The Porg smashing on the window, then landing on the dashboard, then smashing on the window again.
Didn't bother
Is again that slapstick where I'm just going, God, we've beat this to death. Because I remember sitting in the theater, even the first time watching it, going, okay, there's a Porg on the dashboard. I'm like, and then the ship smacks it against the window, and I'm like, oh geez, I'm like, here we go again. They're going to do it. They're going to harp on it too much.
I don't think it's any worse than Ewoks swinging around back and forth, clinging on to you. Like the Ewoks, go watch the Ewoks.
Scene
no, go watch the Ewoks.
Okay.
They might not do one over and over again like that, but if you count up how many times the Ewoks do stuff like that, it's more than the Porgs ever got to.
Yeah.
Oh. At least I guess the problem is, I'm okay if you're going to do a dumb joke and you do it once, even if you do lots of them. But where you do one joke and go, wasn't that funny? Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go.
But I feel like the reason that it's not bothering us is because we were in an okay place with this movie, and you're being picky because this movie left you in a picky place.
Yeah.
So Rose careens, crashing into Finn to stop him from sacrificing himself in the laser, which then dooms everyone else.
If that would ever have worked, which I think the whole point of it is that it wouldn't have.
But no, it's so dumb because she's like, oh no, we're gonna win this by saving the ones we love. Yeah, and you just literally allowed them to open the door on all of your friends.
See, but the assumption I think you're making there is, yeah, this totally would have worked there. And as he's flying up to that, and his ship is literally falling apart, and he hasn't even gotten near it yet.
Yeah. But so it's like, okay, so if you don't crash into this death laser, they open the door 100% guaranteed.
Which is why everybody died at the end. Oh, wait.
Or you let him try it, and according to the guy who knows what the weapon is, because none of you have ever even seen it before, he's able to at least identify it, there's maybe a good chance that you can stop it. So I'm going, let's just say 50-50, right? Or even 99, maybe it's a 1% chance. You have a 0% chance of stopping them from opening the door if it doesn't blow up. You have a 1% chance, worst case scenario, of making it stop. Okay, but that's still a better chance.
Let me give you this, though. First, okay, they get rid of the cannon. Then the first order brings in another one. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They're not hurting for resources here.
Yeah.
Or even just uses the walkers they have already there. It just takes them longer.
Yeah, Poe successfully destroyed the Dreadnought at the beginning. It's just that the cost was too high. That's the point, is that some costs aren't worth paying, and this was one of those.
Well, and it
was also her preventing him from becoming what Poe was at the beginning of the movie. It's like, okay, let's round out your character arc by reining you in before you go all Poe here.
But it's also even Rose tries to justify it with her
dumb line that I have written here. I saved you, dummy. That's how we're gonna win, not by killing what we hate, but by saving what we love.
Is that really so dumb?
So no.
You've got to still kill what you hate.
No. Here's what I love about that, especially in an actual real life situation. There are way too many people that are way too focused on get the other guy. Republicans and Democrats, we gotta stop them from getting into office because they're the bad guys. If you don't fight what you hate, if you're focused on promoting what you like, what you love, or in this case, protecting what you love, you're gonna be a lot better person because hate leads to the dark side.
Yes. No, in fact, I think the only...
She doesn't want the rebellion to go all Shadar Logoth.
Oh, if only. Wow, that's a deep reference. I hope somebody out there if you got that reference, let us know.
We're not going to tell you what it's from.
It's from My Little Pony.
No, don't high five. That was so good. Oh man,
that's just a pop I have to edit out later.
No, just leave it in.
They need to hear the high five.
Yeah, okay. They do.
That's an important part of the character development.
And it's important for them to know that despite us having very different opinions of this, Chris and I are still good friends.
Less different now, hey.
Yeah, that's true. Less different. That's true.
But I was trying to say that the only weirdness for me about that line is just that to say the word love, it just felt weird. I don't know why.
It always feels weird the first time you tell somebody that you love them.
It's true.
It's always awkward.
I would also say from that scene, I would have appreciated it if he did heighten up, like if she had knocked him out of the way and then the blast immediately happened and it had been abundantly clear that he wasn't going to make it in time. Like, I don't feel like that would undercut the theme of what she's trying to do there. And it would also, quiet everybody's concerns that, well, but he was going to save everyone. It's like, let's just nip that in the bud and just say, look, it wouldn't have worked anyway. Now we can move on. They didn't do that. So, I get that complaint, but I agree. I don't think watching it, I was like, man, this ship is literally falling apart there. I kind of feel like that would have hit the inside of that and gone.
If he even made it inside. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's got blasters or something on there. I mean, they had weapons.
They showed those melting away.
Well,
Yeah.
So
anyway. And then the last thing on the original page of notes here is Luke brushing off his shoulder as a hologram.
Really?
Yeah, it felt really cheesy to me.
That was probably the ultimate taunt.
No,
that was a
He
deliberate.
He was taunting Kylo to come
See,
down.
but that's the thing. That's the thing with that whole scene. Is Luke is deliberately tailoring everything there to taunt Kylo Ren.
It just feels cheesy.
He's projecting himself with cut hair so that it'll be exactly what Kylo remembers him like. He's using the lightsaber that
he's
Kylo
never
is all
had.
obsessed that it's mine.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't had for several movies.
Well, that Kylo never saw him with. He hasn't had since Empire.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't make sense for him to have because
but
that has
Kylo
literally been
does tell
destroyed
Rey, like,
already.
that is my lightsaber.
Yeah. No,
I know,
It belongs to
But
me.
yeah, but he knows that it's going to matter to Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
he's deliberately tailoring everything, and he's deliberately being taunty because he needs to draw Kylo Ren out here.
Right. Because that projection technically doesn't make sense. Kylo's never seen Luke with that saber, knows that he shouldn't have that same color hair,
Well, and I'm, I guess, an idiot because I didn't notice it at first.
Oh no, I
did
did not notice any of that until.
So watching it now,
I did.
Really?
I did.
He's the
High
visual
five.
one. He's the visual one. Yeah. No, I didn't notice any of it until people pointed.
Yeah, so I was watching it for this third time. I'm going, there's not even anything on his shoulder for him. Oh, right, because he's a hologram. Shoot,
Yeah.
okay.
Which is why he also doesn't leave footprints in the salt.
Yeah.
The entire
Yes, I noticed
time.
that too this third
Yeah.
time. So there were lots of little things.
Lots of
course,
little things
knowing
that I was
the
like,
end.
wow, how did I not pick that out the first
Yeah.
time? That's awesome. I'm glad that they actually.
So
put
we
it
are
in.
on to my last couple pages, which will go very quickly here. And these are all sort of based on Vito's The Last Jedi is a cinematic failure, something like that is the title of it on YouTube. Phasma versus Finn. Oh, I wish that they had done Phasma versus Finn the way he suggested. It would have been a lot better, I think. So in my notes, I wrote how it should have ended, basically. So episode 7, right? Phasma beats an untrained Finn. That he suggests that it would have been a lot more meaningful to Finn's character progression, even fitting in with what you said too about how he fears the First Order and stuff, if he had been the one with the riot baton at Maz's castle in episode 7 that beats Finn down.
You mean if Phasma
had been the riot baton guy and she had beaten Finn down, and survived, not gotten shot by a bowcaster, but beaten him down, and then they get away, whatever, that it would have been like, Finn is untrained, right? He's sort of at the beginning of his own hero's journey, and he faces this enemy, gets thrashed by them. He comes back then in episode 8 and is able to, he's shown that he's grown, he's progressed, and he's able to fight Phasma to a standstill.
I personally,
and then in
like
episode
that.
9, they would meet her again, and Finn would,
still
thrash her.
might.
But instead, what we get is Phasma gets dumped in a trash can when they meet. Then Finn, still mostly untrained, certainly not as well trained in combat, and especially melee combat, as Phasma, and then he thrashes her again.
No, he gets his butt handed to him and then sucker punches her. The only reason he wins that is because she's turning to shoot at Rose because he just fell into a thing, and he comes up while she thinks he's not there yet, and literally just says, hey, and hits her from behind.
But also,
it was an extremely uncivilized move. but it worked. And it was the only way he was ever going to beat her.
But also, Finn was a trained troop. I mean, he had been trained on those weapons.
Apparently, according to the backstories that I read when I was studying up on Phasma for our villains bracket, apparently he's one of the elite troop specifically trained by her, which I have headcanoned away as ridiculous because, nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Well, see, because I'd always heard that he was like the runt of the litter. right? He was the one that everyone hated, so no one was
No,
really lost.
he was actually
he
was actually her most promising, according to what I read.
But he was the one that everyone hated, right? You know how whenever you have a group of
He
people...
was hated because he was a natural leader, like the other stormtroopers liked him, and he was more merciful than the rest of them.
He kept defying her during training exercises by going back to help people that had gone down, and then they felt that made them look weak, and so they were mad at him.
And so that made, of course, the weaker stormtroopers like him, and all the rest of the stormtroopers hate him, because they're like, dude, you're weak. You're showing weakness by helping these people. So
personally, like I said, I've had canon to that as not being a thing, because I don't buy he's that elite from these movies. But then again, I don't buy that Phasma's that elite from these movies. So
you've seen him fight now, though.
yeah, like he's not a bad fighter. He's just. Yeah.
So Vito's video is absolutely hilarious on this. Next point.
Let me
go
before
ahead.
you go on. Why I don't feel like that's a good idea is mainly because. Oh, so he's learned so much in the last week? Like, everything he's learned has nothing to do with beating Phasma in a fight. Beating Phasma in a fight is primarily central to his character because it's him saying, nope, I'm a rebel now. And she is the one from the very beginning who first started saying, hey, you're out of line, who has been the most vehement about you're a traitor. And so she's the appropriate one there. I agree that she gets undersold throughout this. We've discussed that, just like the legendary Boba Fett gets severely undersold.
And that is Phasma is criminally underused in episode 8. She should have.
If they'd used her in there in the first one, I don't really feel like it wouldn't have made sense for him to beat her in this one, except that he does it as a sucker punch. So I guess it could have worked, but I'm not missing it.
Yeah. So the next point in Vito's video is he talks about how everybody's claiming, Last Jedi is great because it subverts our expectations. And that, that just means that it's unpredictable, but unpredictable doesn't necessarily mean good.
That's true.
So, you have, starting at the beginning, you've got Luke tossing his lightsaber. Oh, gotcha. Just kidding, it's this. And actually, you should go watch it, because it's, with his sound effects and everything, it's quite funny. Because he's like, gotcha! Anyway, but yeah, this whole important thing, with the lightsaber, gotcha, he throws it away. Oh, Leia's dead, just kidding, gotcha, she's alive. Oh, now we gotta go find this code breaker, but gotcha, it's not gonna be him, it's this different guy. Oh, and then this different guy, he betrays you, gotcha again. Holdo, oh, is she bad? Gotcha, no, she's good, just kidding, she's bad, no, but she's actually good, okay, gotcha there too. Hey, Snoke, this totally important character, right? No, he's irrelevant, gotcha, okay, Rey's parents?
I'm gonna address that real quick.
Yeah.
How is he irrelevant?
I know, that's just what he says. I tend to agree, I don't know, he feels less relevant than the Emperor,
but he actually is
about the same
screen time with the same amount of backstory explained.
I guess it's the gold. I don't know. But
I would say it's just that we expect him to be the Emperor, and they undercut that, and he's not, and that's why it feels less fulfilling for a lot of people.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is unpredictable doesn't necessarily mean good.
In this case, it does, and I will discuss that later.
Okay, this is another complaint that I saw, but I actually think it was the right choice, that Rey's parents, they're important. No, just kidding, they're nobody. Yes. The entire universe does not need to rotate on the axis of Skywalker.
Yes.
Yep. I am totally fine with Rey's parents being junkers who sold her for drinking money and abandoned her to Unkar Plot. Totally fine with that, please. It is perfectly okay and possible for heroes to arise outside of the Skywalker bloodline.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So
and not only possible, it's good.
Yes, and so I'm going, yes, that's a decision that I'm very pleased that they went with. And then, I don't know what that one says. Hollow Luke. Oh, he's there, but he's not there. And then, just kidding, Luke dies anyway, even though he shouldn't have died.
He had to. But no, literally. His opposite in the Force died. Now he has to. The Force is in balance.
I wonder, though, if he actually did die, because Vader's body, when Vader's killed, his Force ghost appears, but we actually have the physical robotic remains. We do have his physical body, yeah. We do not have Luke. We don't see Luke's robot hand clatter to the ground.
Oh, that's a fair point.
It disappears with him.
I'll bet that's more of just an oversight.
Oh,
maybe.
Well, now hold on though, because when Obi-Wan disappeared, his underclothes disappeared. It was just his outer robe that was left.
But there's nothing metal. There's nothing robotic. All of Vader's robotic parts stayed, and the whole completed spirit of
that's
Anakin
the thing.
appears.
We see Vader die. His head stays too. Like his entire body doesn't go.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got a Force ghost, but
Yeah.
He got lucky.
Well, it's
but-
just the helmet. We don't actually see the
No,
helmet
but we
body.
see him
Yeah.
die. Luke is holding
Yes,
him,
that's
has the
true.
mask off. He dies, and his body's still there.
True. Yeah. So it disappears. But anyway. Yeah,
Also,
Luke's
from what
robot
we
hands
know,
doesn't...
It's just the arms and legs that are robotic.
yeah.
Unless he's had further work done over the years, but...
And I see it also completely plausible from that angle. You just wouldn't see the hand because
I heard this rumor before. So when I rewatched it, I was specifically looking, and you can see where his hand would be, and the cloak drops before Luke fully fades away. And you can see where his hand is, and it fades away.
or where his hand should be.
Where his hand should be, and it fades away.
I don't know. I would still say that's more of just
Because
they just
otherwise,
didn't
you
think
would
about
see
it.
it falling.
I think we'll just see him come back as a Force Ghost. Like, maybe
Yeah.
he's done something else, but why do they need to? They've already established that these guys can
Yeah.
come back and talk,
Yeah.
so...
We kind of talked about this with Holdo. Just believe women no matter what.
And I will discuss that, too.
And he, the whole that, like, women are better than men. Men need to quit mansplaining. There's literally, when Poe comes up to Holdo again, there's 4 women in the immediate shot with Poe. And, I mean, clear the message is, like, stop mansplaining, Poe.
Funny
you
enough,
know?
one of those is actually on his side.
I know, but still. Then the hyperspace bullet of the Radis, beautiful. Cannot say how pretty that was. However, I agree with Vito. Nobody's ever thought of kamikazing before, ever, in the whole
But-
history of Star Wars.
No. Here we go. I'm ready for this one.
And then, anytime after this, why isn't the answer always, okay, pilot a drone ship, kamikaze?
Well, let's discuss that. We have drones now.
Uh-huh.
Why don't we do that?
They're expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the amount of missiles that it would take to overwhelm that ship, plus all the extras you need to deal with with the shield, plus everything else, just because you're going to have to waste a whole ton of them, is still vastly cheaper than the cost of building a capital ship like that. Like, at the end of episode 6, the final blow to the Executioner that takes out Darth Vader's ship is an A-wing to the bridge. So why aren't we just droning everybody left and right? We've seen it. In real life, like warships used to be built with rams on the front, because ramming was a very common tactic. It fell out of use as a primary tactic around the time of the US Civil War, because that was the point where you were starting to reach the point where rams were not that effective against the solid constructions of these ships. Ramming a ship was still a devastatingly effective thing most of the time, unless they managed to swerve aside and you only scraped it. So it became more risky to your ship, and if you did it, there was almost no way you were going to do damage to them without incurring an equal amount of damage on you. The more risky it became, the less they're just like, no, this just isn't worth the cost. Even putting aside the moral quandary of sacrificing people, which Star Wars doesn't have to worry about because we can do drone ships. Even putting that aside, though, it's still just not worth the cost. Now, even in airfights during World War II, there were a lot of... If you ran out of ammo, pilots would ram each other. They would try and swerve so that they would, like, clip the enemy ship in such a way that it would take out something vital of theirs, but nothing vital of their own ship. It was always very risky and very difficult, but sometimes it was worth it. But even Japanese kamikaze attacks, part of the reason they caught the US so off guard is because nobody throws life away like that.
Yeah.
Unless you back them into a corner. And that's one of the things that's consistent throughout the history of warfare is generally battles end in one of two ways. Either one of the armies flees, or if they're unable to do that, they surrender. One of the major rules of warfare, partly as a practical thing and partly just as a civil thing, is you don't slaughter enemies that have surrendered. Like, you always give them that out. And part of the reason that's more practical than merely humane is because if you don't give them that out, then people become frightening. They become rats backed into a corner. They do amazing and horrible things, and it will be horribly costly to you to wipe out every single one. And there is a host of examples throughout history.
Sun Tzu actually has a significant portion of the Art of War talking about that, where he says, you always want to leave your enemy feeling like there's a way out.
Yeah. Even if you're not going to give them
you want to make sure they don't have a way out, but you want them to think that they do, because men who don't have a way out are even more ferocious than...
And there are a lot of cases of people getting caught off guard by being vicious and not leaving their enemy that out, and then not expecting just how terrifyingly ferocious people can become when they're in that situation. including kamikaze. That's why the U.S. hadn't even backed the Japanese
Yeah.
into an actual corner, but the Japanese government made it out like, oh yeah, they're not going to give you any quarter. They're going to wipe us all out. That's how we just justify to our troops telling them to give them no quarter. And the brutalities that the Japanese inflicted during World War II is because the U.S. is going to do that to you too. And that they actually had a massively successful campaign of just dropping flyers on Japanese troops saying, you can surrender. We ain't going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty dang effective, really, once the Japanese got those. But that's the kamikaze attacks caught the U.S. off guard just because most modern military commanders are not trained to deal with something like that because nobody does that. So I can buy them being caught off guard by that because they're not supposed to do that, and it's never going to be cost effective to do it on a large scale constantly.
I think it would, not constantly, but like, what's the next time, the next time we get Death Star 3 and you're looking at a massive station, why not just go, rather than risk everybody, let's just fill that sucker full of fuel and hyperspace it in.
Maybe they can. Maybe it won't work because the shields, like, we've seen some pretty significant shields. Starkiller Base, the whole planet was shielded.
Yeah.
And they light sped at it and couldn't get they had to light speed at it so that they could get through because blah, 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 technobabble.
Yeah.
But it's like, the theory here is if you try and charge that even at that speed, you're just gonna crash, and like, even hitting a planet at light speed, you're just gonna splatter over the surface.
Yeah.
And if you
it worries me because it's like, now you've introduced this ace in the hole tactic that now is going to be there in the future of, well, why don't they do this?
There are lots of reasons in real life why we don't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if you pay attention to those.
And then the final note I have is, just don't try to be Marvel. It feels a lot like they are trying to be Marvel with a lot of their jokes and humor, and they don't have to be Marvel. It's okay. Marvel can be Marvel.
I don't feel like it's Marvel, but
I don't either. No, I think there's miles to go before you could say that. But
yeah.
I mean, they might have some aspects that are the same, but I mean, everything's the same if you generalize enough. So.
All right. I think that's all I had for the complaints about Last Jedi.
Wow.
We can talk about the
We
good
got
stuff.
through it.
Yeah, see, we made it
got
to
through
the bulk.
that.
Yeah.
I still have one significant complaint. And
I'm sorry.
I still have. I think I just have some cleanup things, really.
Okay. My most significant complaint about The Last Jedi is a dual focus here. So we have 3 plot lines that more or less focus on a more or less perfect woman putting a man in his place. Now, I'm fine with plots of a woman putting a man in his place because, yeah, that happens. It's realistic. But the biggest problem of it is first, when you do it on that scale, when you have that many, it becomes insulting to men because we all understand that, no, this is not how it is 100% of the time. Like, there are people, and it can be harmful because there are people genuinely walking around. Like, I read an article by, I assume, a woman who was being completely serious, as far as I could tell, when she was saying, like, yeah, he had the message of women are better than men, but he just didn't follow through on it at the end. And I was like, you really take that? Like, no. The point is equality. We are all equal. We are all equally capable of good and mistakes. Nothing wrong with having a plot where a woman puts a man in his place because he's being awful, like Poe was. But like I said, I want more from that. I've seen that a lot. I would like to see Holdo being flawed, especially because, and here's the real kicker for me, like, I've heard people complain, it's like, oh, there's all these flawed men, but the women are all perfect. I'm like, yeah, but see, that's the thing. Flawed people in stories who learn to not be so flawed, that is called a character arc. It is what protagonists do, and it is a good thing. You're pointing at this as though it's bad that these men are all so flawed, but actually that's desirable. That's a good thing for a writer, and the fact that basically none of these women have an arc like that is really uncomfortable. Like, there's a long history of women just not getting arcs when men get all the arcs. I mean, even if you look at the original trilogy.
Yeah.
First movie, Luke has an arc. Han has an arc. Leia does not have an arc. Second movie, Leia sort of gets an arc. It's the same one Han has. It's falling in love. But that's the most common arc for any woman to have in any story. Better than that is to treat women as actual characters, especially when you have Leia walking around, you have Rey, you've introduced Rose, you have all these significant female characters, and the fact that none of them get an actual arc, that none of them quite have a protagonist status on par with the arcs that Luke and Kylo and Poe and Finn are all going through, it's hard to look at that and not say, well, yeah, this is some latent sexism here. Like, that's not good. It is, and what's worse about it is that because of that, it somehow simultaneously is super offensive to men and really offensive to women. Like, nobody's coming off well with this. And that's not good. Especially, Rey's the closest to having an actual arc. She does have an arc. Mm-hmm. I missed it the first 2 times I watched it, though. It wasn't until last night when I was explicitly looking for Rey's arc that I really saw that, no, yeah, it is genuinely there. She has an arc. It's just more subtle, especially because her arc is parallel to Kylo's, and his is so much more pronounced.
Right.
So that is my biggest complaint, that it's like, no, this is not good to anyone. Like, this is not feminist. This is not anti-men. It's just not good for anyone. Like, when it comes to that, it's a little awkward for everyone. A little awkward. It's sexist, and it's heavy-handed, and I'm disappointed that, like I wouldn't have liked it if it was just all, oh, the women are all perfect. I want everyone to be flawed. That's why I want Holdo to be flawed, so that she's a real person and not just some sort of convenient plot archetype to put those men in their place. She's a real person putting a man who is also a real person in his place because he has made real mistakes, and she is doing it in a flawed way because she is also a person, and we all learn and grow because, hey, guess what? Women can learn and grow too.
No.
Right?
You don't say.
Right? Man, the things you finally learn when you
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And so that is my biggest problem with this movie, is just that you've got so many prominent female characters. That's why I would have loved to have taken a little time to actually show that Leia freaked the heck out, that she did not have a great reaction to this. Totally justified, totally understandable, but definitely a flaw. Definitely a mistake on her part, at least in the long run. So that we could have seen more of that. I would have liked Rose to have grown up a little bit more instead of just sort of, I am obviously naive in the same way, but then I don't get the arc of growing up from that Finn gets. I'm just suddenly correcting him instead because I know better because I have breasts. You know, and that, so I would like to see more just real characters across the board instead of the
I agree
one-note female
That'd be
characters.
nice.
Yeah. So that's my biggest complaint with this.
Ross, what do you want to add?
A handful of things. They're all going to be a little bit quicker.
I have some not quick stuff at the end. Sorry, listeners, this is long.
Oh.
I have my good stuff still.
Yeah, I hope you buckled up before we started because we are. Whoa. No,
Maybe we should split this, the bad and then the good.
I think we're too close to finishing
the
now.
good won't take me as long as an episode would need.
So the
we'll make a Nerf nugget of it.
Wouldn't even be that.
There's just a little bit of wonkiness that just takes you out of it just a little bit. One is like the Finn and Rose kiss. Now this one I kind of have a hard time even fitting under wonkiness because it does what it's supposed to. So
Well,
hold on. Let me explain. So Rose idolizes Finn. She sees him as a hero of the Resistance. She has heard all these stories about Finn over the week that he's been healing. So she kind of has built and put Finn up on a pedestal, and now she gets to traipse across the galaxy with him, right? So she's fangirling.
She also had him significantly undercut before that. She was disillusioned before she traipsed across the galaxy with him.
yeah.
Well, okay, true, but still, I think it builds up for her fairly quickly because she has to save him. She tries to kiss him at the end. She does kiss him at the end. For Finn, when that little kiss happens, he is completely surprised. He does not return that kiss. That's the reason why I think it is weird, is because it really is only so one-sided.
Well, Finn's not a bright person.
I have some headcanon for you on that. Once you're done,
but it makes sense because...
Well, and this isn't even headcanon. This is book canon. So.
No. But it makes sense to me because Finn has not established those same feelings for Rose. Right?
Yeah.
He hasn't put her up on a pedestal, even though they've had that time to grow. So it's just a little bit, wonky.
I will real quick. The book canon on that, apparently, according to my sister, is that basically her thought process there was she's trying to tell him something important, and he was like looking over his shoulder at like, crap, first order, this, that, and that, and she's just like, pay attention, kiss. And he went, what? And she's like, okay, good, you're paying attention. Here. Which I love so much more than any actual romantic subplot. All I want romantic-wise from the 9th movie is for Poe and Rose to end up together. Because that would make no sense at all with what they've shown, and it would just be the biggest middle finger to all these shippers out there that are just so over the top ludicrous about this.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason all of that is in there. You remember Avatar: The Last Airbender when so many people were shipping Zutara?
Yeah.
We want Zuko and Katara together, even though it made no effing sense with anything they had shown in that show. But then it started appearing, because the creators were just like, all right, you want that?
Yeah.
We'll screw with you. And it was hilarious. And I love making fun of people, including my wife, who actually wanted that. That's a chunk of what Rian Johnson is doing here, is just going, guys, this isn't a romance. Just, you know what? Here, I'm going to have Poe and Finn. I'm going to have the Poe and Finn shippers just up in arms about something. I'm going to have the Finn and Rose over here. I'm going to have the Finn and Rey shippers over here. I'm going to give you some Rey and Kylo people. I am going to give you Rey and Poe at the end. And I'm just, you know what? Screw all of you. You're all crazy. Simmer down.
I would both respect and hate that all at once.
Yeah,
Anyway.
That's fair.
So the Leia Force float thing, we've already talked about it. It just kind of looks funny, I think, and also part of the big
does
problem.
not look 100% real. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and also because she does kind of have this whole, Wicked Witch of the West position as she flies through. I mean, there's a couple things that could have been done differently to help that, but yeah, it's again, we've talked about it. It's fine. Not too worried about it. Thanks, Chris. The iron landing as they are above the
in the laundry room.
I loved it. It was a great gag, but then it's just like,
apparently the movie is just packed with references to all sorts of Star Wars projects too, and that was a reference to Hardware Wars or whatever it was called. The first Star Wars parody.
Yeah, it was some other parody.
No, it was the very first Star Wars parody ever made, was Hardware Wars or whatever.
But yeah, it was. I hadn't seen it, so I didn't get the joke. But whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of bothers me, but also kind of, it doesn't. It does actually bother me. Is we never got Luke's third lesson. The first was what is the Force?
That did get cut.
The second is I guess pride. Just beware of pride, I guess, is what it boils down to. Because that's when he's having the conversation about
the Jedi, their arrogance thing.
Right. But yeah, the third lesson apparently was cut, because that's another thing that Ryan was saying in the commentary, was that apparently they shot some scene where Luke makes Rey think that the caretakers on the island are in some sort of danger. And so when she figures out they're not, she comes back and she kind of chews him out for it. And he said that they cut that scene because it left the two of them in a bad place, leading into their next fight over her leaving, right, over the Kylo Rey thing. Mm-hmm. So he didn't want to have them in that spot when other plot points kind of took priority. So we never got that third lesson, which I would have liked to have seen. Hyperspace tracking. I mean,
doesn't bother me at all.
They foreshadowed it in Rogue One. I just kind of don't like how they use it, and B, kind of what it does to the universe. It's a little bit overpowered.
Nope, doesn't do anything to the universe once someone creates hyper tracking blocking. Like, that's how technology works in the real world, too, is, oh my gosh, we've got this, and then someone builds something like Schlock Mercenary, Kevin invents the teleport, we now have open-ended teleportation, we can teleport anywhere whether or not there's a receiver on the other end, which in any situation is going to lead to a very quick and devastating war.
Yep.
and then someone invents teleport area denial fields so that we can block people from teleporting into a certain area, and bam, we're back at peace.
Okay. If they do that before the next movie, then it's fine for me.
Yeah, they probably just won't bring it up.
Probably not. That's what I'm thinking, is that they'll just abandon it. You'll never see it again.
It's quite possible.
Also,
you'll see it in the books. You'll
true.
see it in the extended universe, but not in the movies. Certainly.
I also have a problem with only the one ship doing the tracking. I feel like especially if you've never used it before, you probably should have everyone working on it just in case something goes wrong. And so why was it just the Supremacy doing the tracking?
My guess would be that it's like a prototype or something that, hey, we got this one thing working. Okay, put it on the flagship.
But it's specifically important because they'll just start tracking them from another ship.
Right.
If they specifically mention that if we take out that ship, they'll just start tracking us from another one. So I think it's just a protocol thing. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe the hyperspace trackers interfere with one another or something, and so we just do it with one. Or
see, and that's fair, but I mean, they don't
explain it. But again, it's one of those things that it's like, it's already a long movie.
Yeah. But again, that goes back to, I feel like it should have been a Mole subplot rather than a Canto Bight subplot. Regardless, I know that's
you're
before
fine, you're fine.
Our conversation earlier. Yeah. Anyway, and then the scanning of the shuttles, they couldn't see them. Right, when they
said there was like a cloaking field or something.
Did they?
Yeah. They say as they're going out, they're like, okay, we got the cloaking active.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
And they have to run a specific
when
Snoke
or whatever, does the big reveal. Or whoever it is,
it's when they're there for the execution.
They said like, oh, you're right, we found a cloaking field.
We ran a decloaking.
We ran a decloaking. That's what it is. Yeah. So they did mention that. Yeah.
Okay. I missed it. Never mind. Scratch that
Which is
from
one
the
of those
record.
examples. Someone invented a cloak, someone invented a decloaking scan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other part of that was like, they can't see those shuttles, but they can sure see Rey's pod real easy.
Well, but Rey also wasn't hiding. She was
Right.
Yeah.
trying to get, like, hey, here I am. Take me to Kylo Ren.
Again, but I mean, it comes from, if it was the size, why they can see
Yeah.
the pod, but not that.
Yeah.
Let's see. I had some understandable complaints, but I think we might have talked. Yeah, because it was all just about Holdo.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm going to give some quick objections to complaints I've heard. Why doesn't Hux just have someone light speed ahead to box in the rebels?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's actually good military practice. Don't back them into a corner. And also because this is actually a safer bet. They're not going anywhere. He knows it.
Yeah,
You
you
just
can
let them-
afford to run
Yeah,
them out.
he loses no soldiers at all.
Well,
no
Rogue One,
material
I
and
lose
no-
nothing but time.
Exactly. And why doesn't Leia just, empty one ship and send it off in one direction and then send the others off in another direction?
Oh,
Because they have multiple trackers on their ships. We have that mentioned. They'll just start tracking us with
This
another
is
ship.
one thing that-
one person can follow, a couple of them can follow, and the others can still follow.
Yeah.
This is one thing that made, or that I kind of made me scratch my head as I'm going, okay, obviously your ships have like a certain number of crew slots. There's a certain number of chairs to man weapons and, navigation, whatever. Wouldn't it have been better to put the fuel in one of the smaller ships that could actually go further faster?
Yep.
And unload the Raddus? and
It's
leave the
just a
Raddus to be
question of
destroyed,
can they transfer fuel in mid-flight because they can't slow down to switch fuel over or anything.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that was just
Well,
thought I
and you're
had.
also
It's like,
looking
why
at,
not?
at a ship that's like 5 times the size of any of the other 2 ships.
Well, yes, but that goes back to what I'm saying. Yes, you may have a certain number of like crew slots, if you will, but it's not like people can't stand shoulder to shoulder in the hallways. It's an emergency. It's literally life or death. Cram in there, buddy.
Yeah.
I just suspect, my explanation would be, we can't actually transfer fuel at full speed flight. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway,
We
so
won't talk
there's
about
that.
the actual physics of how that works in space, but
Yeah,
anyway.
that too.
And I'm on to like, so if you have any other
Yeah, I'm
complaints.
ready to go to likes.
No, I'm on likes.
Whew. We can all agree it looks beautiful.
It
Yeah.
does
Like-
indeed.
Yep.
Boy, there's like I said before, not a single frame that I wouldn't feel comfortable printing out and putting on my wall as a picture. So beautiful.
Both
No,
physical.
No, you're right. Kylo Ren
You want
shirtless.
Kylo Ren shirtless on your wall?
Dang it! they outed me. I'm a shirtless Kylo Ren fan.
I am.
But not only like physically the actual physical images set
Yeah.
up, but also kind of the metaphors behind the images. I thought were also
Yeah.
really good.
It was a little bit weird, but I liked it when the sound went out after the
Yeah.
hyperspace ram. Like, it caught me off guard. I'm like, wait.
Caught a
Because
lot
at
of people off
first,
guard.
I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, did the sound cut out or something? I mean, that's what everybody thought. But then I was like, oh, no, okay, they're just doing this for artistic stuff. Wow, okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that. That was one of those things where I just headcanoned. I'm like, I know it doesn't fit with anything else in Star Wars, but I'm all right with that. It's pretty enough that I like that. And I mentioned this too earlier, but boy, the turbo laser bolts impacting the shields of the Raddus, that looked so pretty.
I did love that.
I'm like, get just more of that. Give me like a half an hour of that in episode 9. Stuff exploding on shields. Let's do it. Man. 2 more. Well, Ross, do you have anything? Any more likes you want to add?
Well, I have a bunch of likes.
Oh, do it. Dude, throw out a couple.
I like how heavy the tone was at the end. Very, very, not oppressive, but like very serious. The no one's coming to their aid.
Yes,
I gotta
love
say,
that.
also, particularly last night, the music when Luke is walking out to face the First Order. Oh, love that. Man. We were discussing earlier about whether or not there were things. That theme right there.
Yeah.
I could eat that up.
But just I don't know, just the gravity. You really get a good sense of the gravity of the situation they're in.
Yeah. Great Luke's
loved-
about roughly Earth gravity.
Oh, that was a good one.
That's actually why those crafts need skis, is because the gravity's more significant. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now it all makes sense. I can accept it now.
yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
I loved Kylo's fire everything moment. As they're there at the end, and he sees Luke. I liked how it stayed true to kind of and showed the instability of his personality.
I
Just
agree.
forget everything, destroy that ship with the Millennium Falcon beforehand, and then fire everything at that one dude, right?
Yeah.
And just how it does show his emotional state. But also I liked, and we talked about this earlier, but I liked how Hux is trying to stay relevant in a post-Snoke world. You know, it's him trying to kill Kylo, or like starting to reach for his pistol.
I love that.
That is my favorite moment in
That
this
is
movie.
a great moment.
I love that moment.
But then also the afterwards when Kylo's giving orders and he's just like, well, who are you to
Repeating
give
the
orders?
orders, yeah.
No. But even before that, in
first
the
time,
throne
yeah.
room. Yeah. He's like, who are you to give me orders? You know, I'm actually the outranking person here. And Kylo's just like,
Nope.
The Supreme Leader is dead.
yeah. Well, and then in the Force choke, I mean, he's not messing around. The
Yeah.
throwing him against the side of the cockpit of the shuttle. I mean, I liked that, and I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And then Kylo's just like, Hux is repeating the things that Kylo's saying. Like, again, just trying to
I have
find
one
some
job
place.
in this order. It's
That's
stupid, but I'm gonna do it.
I thought of that. I also love the moment when Kylo goes in to pick up the dice off the floor, and you just see Hux looking in after him. Just Domhnall Gleeson can glare, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
I hope we get more of him.
Oh, we are. But that's pretty clear. They're setting up
I hope so.
that struggle between the two of
Well,
them.
but what I'm saying is I hope he's not like wasted like Phasma, you know, where it's like episode 9,
Yeah.
here's Hux, oh, he's going to be in 3 scenes. and
I
who
would
cares?
say with the amount of setup they're giving to their
I would
relationship,
hope so.
I would wager, like, I cannot imagine them doing that, but...
But they
you never
also,
know.
they had a huge amount of setup for Snoke.
Yeah, but
You
Snoke
know.
was a deliberate red herring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But, I mean, and so could this be, but
Yeah.
I don't think it is. It's
I
the
hope
central conflict on the bad guy's side.
yeah.
Basically, every time any sort of Jedi or Force users were on screen, I was there.
Okay. That
Subplots, subpoints, hold
Okay,
on.
maybe you'll hit mine then.
Yeah, maybe. I liked Luke finally learning Yoda's lesson of pass on all that you have learned.
Yes, that's excellent.
Yeah,
That is one of my points
yeah.
that I wanted to... We already mentioned it a little bit, but yeah. That failure is a great teacher. So true.
Well, and it does kind of give you a rounded off, another little bookend to Luke that you didn't really have before.
Yeah.
You know, you had his own personal struggle in Jedi, but then to actually have his struggle with the Force and becoming a teacher and that sort of thing, I thought it was great. I liked the scene with Luke being reminded by R2 about his past.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, you were right with R2 should have gotten off the ship earlier, but the way the
R2
scene
was
played
charging.
out-
He's been on low power for a long time. He had to plug in. I don't
He's
know.
been plugged in the whole time, Chris.
No, he wasn't plugged in. That's the problem.
Dang it, they ran the battery out. Darn kids.
straight up weak to charge an RT.
He's just tired. He
Dang.
spent so long sleeping that he just got used to it.
Yeah. I love the grittiness of the war, both sides buying from the Canto Bite peoples. Rey's parents, which we've also already talked about, like that. I liked everything with Rey's training. I thought just Luke, that whole bitter old man, and how
Mark Hamill knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, he really did. Loved that Snoke died off.
I mean, especially even
Yes.
if what we're talking about with, Mark Hamill has voiced some definitely conflicting opinions back and forth about this movie and his role in it. Even more impressive that he managed to deliver a performance like that if he wasn't fond of what he was doing.
Yeah.
That is professional right there.
True. But yeah, I do like that Snoke died. I like that it leaves, Kylo some room to grow and to develop a little more. And honestly, probably the single most favorite point of the whole thing was Kylo's "Join Me" speech.
I love that speech. Yeah.
In Star Wars, all of the "Join My Side" conversations have really amounted to Korg from Ragnarok. Hey man, we're all gonna jump on that battle station over there and take over the galaxy. Wanna come?
Yeah.
That's basically the entire reasoning behind joining me, right? Like Vader cuts off Luke's hand, and then 2 seconds later is like, hey, let's split. Let's take over the Emperor.
Take over and be powerful.
He does the same thing to Obi-Wan in Episode 3. We can overthrow the Emperor that we've just formed. It's my empire now. Ha 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 ha. Maniacal laugh. But for Kylo to actually walk up and be like, I saw your parents, by the way. They were nobodies. I know you've been looking for this answer. Turns out it sucks. But with me, you can have a place. You can have the place you're looking for.
Well, and even more than that, to basically just be like, I know you are lonely. So am I. Just join
be
me
lonely
so
together.
that we don't have to be lonely anymore.
And there was something I can't believe I had missed until I was watching the commentary today. He ends it with a please.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Just like even just
so
seeing
polite.
that, but he's begging for it. You can see that
And you
himself
look
also
at
has
his
a
face
full-
there. He is begging.
Yeah,
and I love it.
It was absolutely amazing. I love the fight. Love the Praetorian Guard fight and how they do kind of stop making faces, Tyler.
Ross heard me rolling my eyes.
They have this moment where Rey thinks she's done with. Kylo has. Even though it plays out as Kylo's trying to take over, I feel part of it is sort of a goodness in him into not actually killing her.
He's very conflicted.
He could have done both at the same time.
Well, and
could
it's
have killed
not
Snoke.
until the fight is done with that he goes, "Oh wait,
True.
I could be in charge. Hey, why don't you come over here, Rey?"
It was really like taking charge is nice for him. Like it's him grabbing what's there. But yeah, it's really just, I hate this man. This man has abused me.
During the fight, it's very much just
out.
like, you know what, I've had it with you. I'm a dog who's been kicked one too many times. Now it's time for me to bite. And he kills him, and then in the aftermath goes, oh, well, here's an opportunity.
Look at this ready-made empire.
Yeah.
But even just the interaction between them, where she was so, I think at that point should have been losing hope, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, things are working, and then they're on each other's team, fighting back and forth, and also one little thing I've noticed, which I is funny to me, where you know how they start off the fight back to back. There's one part where Kylo leans forward, Rey leans back and kind of falls on him and grabs his like really high upper thigh up on his hip. And it's just like,
ooh, a little love squeeze, huh?
Rey, this is not the time. But,
save it for after the fight, Rey.
Yeah. So,
oh boy,
great stuff.
You got more?
Oh yeah, just two things. Luke's assessment of the Jedi. We mentioned that already. Spot on. Every word he said, I'm like, yep.
And for people who feel like it's unrealistic for Luke to be all, oh, the Jedi must die. Remember, aside from the Jedi failing to stop Sidious, etc.,
I am
etc.,
one of those people, by the way.
Aside from etc., etc., the only examples Luke has ever had of real-life Jedi are two people who lied to him to turn him into an assassin to unknowingly murder his father, and himself who nearly murdered who considered murdering his own nephew. Like, he's got good reason to not think highly of the Jedi at this point.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which goes back to before Force Awakens happened, the midichlorians of the prequels are not well loved. And I think with good reason. They make no sense. It just clutters up everything that was beautiful about the Force.
Well, and it takes it from a beautiful mystic thing.
And J.J. Abrams specifically, intentionally said, we are going to go back to the roots of the Force, where there's a little bit of Force in everybody. Everybody has that potential to be good. The Force is an intangible thing, and to kind of get back to that original trilogy feel, which is why it very much feels that way in Force Awakens. Yeah. And then Rey/Luke's description of the Force and how it feels, when Rey, after he slaps her hand, which is stupid, and then he's like, hey, try again, now actually feel out. Actually, reach out and feel the Force. And she's like, oh, I feel that it's lightness, it's dark, it's the sun, it's the water, it's the, that whole speech that she does. I was like, yes, 100%. That is perfection. That's the Force. She nailed it right there. And that whole speech encapsulates exactly what we all felt as kids watching the original trilogy. So that, I'm like, the highest marks for that moment there, that scene of her describing the Force. It is so good.
So, I like this movie. In fact, on repeated viewings and studying this movie, it may be my favorite Star Wars movie.
Oh my gosh!
It may have eclipsed Empire Strikes Back at this point.
Man.
I really like this movie. Now, this movie, from a storytelling perspective, is just very well crafted. Like, so we have Luke, Finn, Poe, Rey, and
Rose.
The actual protagonists. Like I said, the ones who are actually going through character arcs.
Oh.
And Kylo, who are all going through actual character arcs. And it's all the same arc, just in different stages and different forms. None of them feel quite the same, which is a testament to good writing, that they don't stand out as everybody's doing the same thing here, but they really are. Finn is failing over and over and over again, and eventually reaching the point where Poe was at, where he's grown numb to this war. He is doing bad things, and so he's growing. He's learning. He's from the failure. The failure is the failure is the best teacher, is the lesson of this movie, and it's approached several different ways. It's approached by Poe, who, in contrast to Finn learns every lesson every time. He's just got a lot of lessons. But every time he learns.
Yeah.
Even at the very beginning of the movie, where he picks up as the same as he was, he immediately, once he gets tasered and then they have a plan, he steps up and goes, okay, wait, no. He gives the tracker that leads to Rey to Poe to let him take care of that. Like, he sets aside something that's important to him to do something. Like, he's learning, he's growing. He's learned from his failure at the escape pod. He learns from his failure on each of his failures on Canto Bight. He learns from his failure on Snoke's ship, and then he continues learning throughout. It's just this learning and growing every single time. Poe won't learn. He makes a really callous decision right at the beginning, and Leia she slaps him.
Yeah,
she slaps him and then demotes him and really chews him out. And it's just like, people died. There were heroes in that battle, and she's like, yeah, dead heroes, no leaders. Like, that is taking down a peg, especially from someone that he respects.
That's
that much.
a great line.
It
by
is.
The way.
It is.
I like that line.
But then he doesn't learn.
Right.
He refuses to learn, and so he has to go through all of this again. He's the one who sets in motion the plan that leads to the destruction of most of the rebellion, because he just wouldn't learn. Which is why it is a little frustrating to me that he gets put back into a position of authority at the end when there's so few people left. And it's like, okay, I guess maybe Leia's got foresight. She knows that Carrie Fisher's going to die, and so she won't be around very long.
No, but hold on. But there's some parts of the conversation that they're having in that base shows Poe's growth.
No, he grows. That's what I'm saying. Eventually, he does learn. First, he refuses to learn, but then eventually he does.
But that's where Leia is like, oh, now he gets it. Okay, now he can.
But that's the thing. That removes the consequence. Just because he learned his lesson doesn't mean he shouldn't still have the consequence. He should have remained low-ranking and had to earn back that position of authority later. But nevertheless, at least he does learn. He gets down there on Crate, and he's flying there and finally realizes, no, this is too much. This is too risky. And he's learned, and he calls off the attack. But of course, Finn is now in the place where Poe was, and so he hasn't grown. But then even once he gets back in, he looks at Luke and realizes that, oh my gosh, Luke is doing exactly what I spent the first part of this movie doing. He's just stalling for all of us. He's learned. He's seen that, no, this isn't about the fight. I can see now what he's doing. We have to get out. So he's grown and he evolves, but first he refused. Unlike Finn learned every time. Poe can't quite do it. Now Rey, she's not quite even getting started. She just said that her biggest problem is she cannot convince herself that she's a Jedi. She's looking for someone else to solve the problem. She's not even getting to the point where she can make a failure. She wants training because she's scared of what she can do, but it's not so that she can go be the Jedi to save everyone. It's just so that she's just like, so I understand what's going on, and she's constantly trying to get Luke to go solve the problem. When he won't do it, she decides Kylo is the one to save the problem. If I can go redeem Ben, he will be the one to solve the problem. And it's actually Kylo that helps her complete that arc where she and convince her, like, you're nobody, like, just like you think, like you've been telling yourself, but not to me. Like, you don't have to be nobody. You are somebody. You are the somebody I'm looking for. Like, all of this. And it's only at that point that she finally reaches a point where she starts going, I don't need them. I can be that. And I can finally step up and be the one to make the mistakes. She's just afraid to do anything herself. And so she's at a point even earlier than Finn. Luke is the one who has hit rock bottom. He has failed harder than anyone, and he is afraid to get back up and try. But Poe, he never stops trying, even when he's not learning his lesson, even when he's... And Luke is the central story of being broken by failure and still nevertheless getting up. Heroes stand up, Galileo. Heroes get back up. And him learning to do that. So he's the one who has been broken and fallen harder than any of them and has to learn to get back up. And then Kylo is further than Poe. He is the one who won't learn. He just won't learn at all. In fact, he gets the antithesis of Yoda saying, no, failure is important. We need to learn from our failures. Failure is the greatest teacher. And Kylo is saying, let the past die. Kill it if you have to. Just get rid of it, which is why he can't learn. In the last movie, he murdered his father, and to quote Jenny Nichols roughly here, it left him emotionally crippled. It landed him a ridiculously severe wound in his side that between the two of them led to him getting defeated by someone with no training as Snoke rubs in really hard.
Yeah.
And he won't learn. He won't let himself grow. He won't learn from his failure. He just keeps repeating the same mistakes over and over again. He still wants to kill the past. past. That's what he did before. He doesn't kill Leia, but that's not learning. It's just, I can't quite do this right now because he's emotionally crippled. He's at a place where that would break him. And so he can't quite make himself do it, but it's not learning. He just keeps going. Kill the past, do it over and over again. And it's what leads to his defeat at the end, because he could not learn from the past. He could not get past his desire to kill everything related to Ben Solo and just move on. And if he'd been able to do that, he would have won. But he can't. He can't kill the past. He cannot learn from his failure. And so he keeps on making those mistakes. And all of these just line up right. They interact perfectly. And it's just a beautiful arc of every iteration of learning from failure or not learning from failure that we can have. Love it. Now, on top of all of that, it is also a commentary on Star Wars and its fandom. This is a movie. This is a movie about fans and how stuck in the past we are, and our ability and our inability. It is simultaneously, we need to learn from our mistake. This movie ties into the prequels more than Rogue One, which tied into the prequels more than any other movie more than Force Awakens and more than Solo. This movie ties to the prequels left and right. It's overcoming midichlorians. It's learning from the mistake of that, like you said. It's taking the basically forgotten prophecy about bringing balance to the Force and making it a central theme. It's saying, no, that happened. We're not just going to drop that. We never understood what it meant, so here you go. It's literal. It's happening. It's, Rey is literally this powerful because there is balance in the Force, and she is the balance to Kylo. And they are beautifully balanced. They are beautiful foils to each other. Like, everybody, because their arcs are all the same but slightly different, they are all wonderful foils to each other left and right. And she and Kylo are the strongest. He is someone who comes from, he is the son of General Han Solo, the smuggler of the rebellion, and General/Princess Leia, the / sort of a Jedi Leia, and the nephew of the Last Jedi Luke Skywalker. Like, he has so many expectations heaped upon him, and all he wants to do is just get rid of it. And guess what happened when he tried to get rid of it? He just got the new expectation because he's the grandfather of Anakin Skywalker, and now he has the grandson. Yeah, sorry. and now he just has a new one to live up to. Going to the dark side didn't get rid of all the problems he had; it just gave him the same ones over again. He just has so much expectation heaped on him, and he wants nothing more than to get rid of it. He gets rid of the parents that he felt were the lodestone on him, weighing him down. He wants to get rid of the Jedi Luke. He gets rid of the master who was constantly berating him for not being his grandfather. He is just so sick of being told he has to be his family, just like the fans say he has to be. He's not Darth Vader is one of the biggest complaints that you get about him. I'm going to get back to that in a second. And then you have Rey on the other side. Rey is nobody, and it cripples her. She is terrified that she is just nobody, that she isn't what Kylo Ren is. It's why she goes to Luke. It's why she goes to Kylo, because they are the important people. It can't be her if she's nobody. That's why she doesn't want to be nobody, so that maybe she can do something, but she can't because she's just nobody. She's the exact opposite of Kylo in so many ways. He is just a pissed off emo kid who has not grown up and just can't grow up, and is constantly throwing temper tantrums because he just doesn't want any of the things that the world is trying to force on him, but he cannot escape this constant pull to the light that he just wants to be rid of. She is also fierce, also fiery, but more restrained, with a focus. She does not just loose on anyone. She gets purposefully mad. She had to grow up fast. She is the end. She has always been grown up, basically. She's been a slave. She had to learn to take care of herself. And she has had to learn to have appropriate, to fight for her survival. She is nobody. She has learned, and she has to learn to overcome that, just like he refuses to learn to overcome what his past was. Beautiful, beautiful parallels, and just so many foils that I just love looking and finding all the connections and going, oh my gosh, how did he blend all this together? Then we have the commentary on the fans. So we're learning from the prequels. We're not just erasing the past. We're not pretending those didn't happen. We're learning from them. We're incorporating them. We're building upon them. We're growing from them. We're not just doing it with that, though. Fans are so centered on the past that they can't move forward. They just want more and more and more of the past. They cannot learn from the past and then move on to something new, like this movie is telling them they have to. Which is why it's even better that so many fans... I kind of feel like that's part of why so many fans reacted so vehemently to the really, really angry ones. It's like, because this movie is basically telling them, look, guys, you kind of got to get over Star Wars a little bit. It's a great thing. We're going to...
No, Chris, we're not going to get over it. We're going to start a new podcast about it.
no, but it's like, you need to learn to let go what Star Wars was and let it become new things. Because I've been saying this on this podcast constantly, that if they don't, that the more we make, the more it's going to grow and expand. And that's what this film is saying. So, of course I love it. It's saying what I say. But it's saying to the fans, look, you're only going to get more of this. It's gonna keep growing and evolving. You're gonna get more of what you don't want, but it's okay, because it's all going to still be Star Wars in the end. At the end of this, like, I've heard a lot of people that complain because, there's so many moral grays that this raised up, but then at the end it's just Star Wars again. I'm like, no, that's the point, you fools. The point is that we can introduce more. We can have moral grays. We can have all of this, and at the end of the movie, it's still Star Wars. It's still the black and whites. We still have the heroes and the villains. We still have this little boy that is the stand-in for all of us, who is so inspired by all of this and wants more, wants to grow and become this. Everything that we've gone through is happening in this movie with Luke, the myth of Luke, with him saying, no, we don't need these myths. We need to get rid of them. And the film and Rey and everyone else eventually helping him learn that, no, these myths are a good thing. This hope, this spark that we're going to kindle, it's a good thing in universe, and it's a good thing here in the real world. It is good to have Star Wars inspiring us, giving us these stories. You people who are complaining because Star Wars isn't gray enough, or because it isn't Star Trek that gives us all these moral issues, that's okay. It's still good and inspiring and wonderful, and we need to use it in that way. So it's simultaneously this beautifully mirrored plot left and right. It's also a commentary on Star Wars. It's a commentary on the fandom. There's even more that I could go to. That's part of why there are so many ludicrous points in this movie. Like, it is very over the top at a lot of places. The humor is over the top. There is that moment when BB-8 is in the chicken walker, the ATST, and he is saving them, and it moves forward, and the top gets torn off, and you see that, and then Finn and Rose look at each other and go,
Really?
What? Because that's kind of the point. Star Wars is a little ridiculous, guys. We love it. That's okay, because that's what the movie's trying to tell us at the end. It's okay for Star Wars to be ridiculous. It always has been. It's okay for Star Wars to be serious. It always has been. And it's okay to go in new directions with each of those. It's okay if they make prequel-esque kiddie shows out of Star Wars, because it's always been for kids. That's like, we have a kid at the end. This is for kids, but it is also for adults. It can be everything. And eventually it will be everything to everyone. And that's great. And I love that. And then finally, one final point that is one little thing that I love. We're going to talk about Ron Weasley for just a second. Okay? I know.
That's a hard left.
Yeah, it is. One of the things I love about Ron Weasley is that I love characters that spur the audience to behave as either the character themselves or other people in the universe. See, now Ron Weasley is his greatest flaw, his greatest difficulty is that he just feels cripplingly inadequate. He is the sixth child of 7. He has 5 older brothers that are just insanely awesome. One's basically magic Indiana Jones. One trains dragons for a living. They were both great Quidditch players, head boys or prefects at school. The next brother is basically just perfect in his studies and in school and everything. He was a prefect, he was head boy. The next 2 brothers are just awesome and likable, and everybody loves them. They're hilarious. And then there's him. And then there's his little sister that is the child that his parents want. And although his parents are loving and, of course, would never deliberately suggest this in any way, part of Ron Weasley always knows that the only reason he exists is because his parents wanted her. Because they tell all the time the story of how they just kept going because they wanted a girl and they just didn't get one. She's the reason he exists. Like, she's more significant to him, even though she's younger, just by nature, because she's the girl that everybody wanted. And he's just kind of the leftover that happened. And he's grown up with this, and then he goes to school, and he makes 2 friends. His best friends are the single most stunningly brilliant student in the school and the frickin' chosen one. The boy who lived. And that's not going to help any of Ron's crippling inadequacy issues. And so I hate it because Ron is my favorite character in Harry Potter. But I love looking at fans and the way they treat Ron Weasley, particularly because of the butchery that the movies did to Ron Weasley's character, and how dismissive they are of him. It's just like, he's useless. Why is he even here? This should just be about Harry and Hermione, all this stuff. And I go, you know what's funny about that? If you could jump into this book and talk to these characters, if you said that, Harry, that you idolize so much, would be pissed at you. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't like you at all. Hermione would be pissed at you because you just insulted their best friend / her future boyfriend / husband. Ron, he'd completely agree with you because that's exactly what he thinks. That is his biggest problem that he cannot overcome, and that neither can the fans. And for me, that is beautiful writing. When a writer can create something that doesn't... Because main characters tend to engender good feelings from audiences. They tend to love them. They want more of them. They will defend them in ridiculous ways, especially if you get inside their head at some point. And they will create ludicrous justifications for anything that they do if they like them well enough. So when you can create a character that people go, no, look how awful they are in this way, and it's exactly the way that people in universe treat them, or exactly the way that character sees themselves, I think that's brilliant writing. When you can just point to the audience and say, yeah, that's the point. That's how Ron sees himself. And you know what? If all of you are reacting this way, lots of people in universe probably do too. That's Ron's problem. So we come to this movie. We get the hate about Luke. Oh, Luke would never do that. That's too horrible. Da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, Luke would agree. That's Luke's problem. The myth of Luke Skywalker. That's what Luke hates, is what we've all done to him. That we have all placed him on this pedestal of perfection, and he wants to tear it down because nobody can live up to that. Nobody is that. Luke is very hurt because he feels all the same things that we all feel about what happened to Luke Skywalker. Yeah, it's horrible. It's devastating. It shouldn't have happened. He agrees. You're reacting exactly how you're supposed to when you feel that way. I felt that way. I love this movie. I adored this movie. My first reaction was, what are you doing to Luke? Ow! I don't want to see this happen to Luke. Why is this happening to Luke? Does this even make sense that this is happening to Luke? It probably doesn't. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to. I'm doing exactly what Luke did, and I love it. Kylo Ren. Kylo's biggest problem is that everybody wants him to be Darth Vader. In universe and out. Snoke is constantly berating him in both movies for not being Vader enough. Why aren't you Vader? So guess what, audience? When you're complaining because Kylo Ren isn't Vader, yeah, so does Snoke. That's his biggest problem, is that he is not Vader and he hates it. He wants it so badly, but he never will be, and neither will any of us. It's okay to have other people. It's okay to have other stories. You're reacting exactly in universe like he does and like Snoke does. And that's good writing for me. Snoke. Snoke thinks he's the Emperor, just like we all did. And that's his problem. That's what kills him in the end, is that he is so arrogantly confident that he can do what Darth Sidious did. See, Darth Sidious was a master. Darth Sidious, the standard role of the Sith is there's an apprentice and there's a master, and eventually the apprentice is going to overthrow the master and become the master. Darth Sidious went through at least 3 apprentices that we know of before one finally managed to do any of that. He kept Maul going. When he dropped Maul, Maul still came back and was, kind of pissy about the whole thing. But he then picked up another apprentice. He got rid of that one and got another one, and that one lasted a long time. Darth Vader was the ultimate pinnacle achievement of the Master Sith. He created an apprentice who wasn't going to overthrow him, who was devoted to the ideals that they were doing, who wasn't looking for self-promotion. He did get there a bit, come join me and we'll overthrow the Emperor, but he still didn't do it. Even in that scene in the throne room, Darth Vader's protecting the Emperor when Luke tries to overthrow him. He was a loyal servant. That is something the Sith do not see often. Every apprentice, either the apprentice gets betrayed or the master gets betrayed, and Sidious kept that running for a long time, and Snoke thinks he is Sidious. He thinks he can do that. And which is why he's so focused on Kylo Ren being Vader. That's what he wants. He wants to make a Vader. He wants that loyal, obedient cur, just like Hux. Why he wants a mix of... That's probably why he keeps them both around. He wants a mix of Hux and Kylo Ren. He wants someone who's just going to be mindlessly obedient, but still just viciously horrible and powerful. And he thinks he's Sidious, and so he can do it. But his problem is, he's not the Emperor. He never was. He thought he was, so did we. And he was just as caught off guard as we were when he found out that he wasn't. He got killed because his apprentice was not Darth Vader. And his apprentice was not going to put up with that. And eventually just overthrew him. Not even to gain control, not even to become the master, just because he was so sick of it in a way that Vader never would have been. Because he's not Vader. Because Snoke was not the Emperor. And I love it. I love how the audience is reacting exactly how all the characters do. That is some beautiful writing for me. I love it more and more every time I look at it. I love this movie, Rian Johnson. Thank you very much. Even if I don't blame anyone for not liking it. It's hitting everything I've just listed. That's particularly for me as a writer. I'm just drooling over that. I get why it doesn't necessarily hit home as hard for other people as it does for me. That's okay. If you don't like it, if it's not your number one, it wasn't mine either. I'm surprised to hear myself saying that. But it might have gotten there now. I love this movie. I love all the intricacies. I love finding new stuff. Because there's so much more, too, that Rian Johnson did with the references and what he's doing with the absurdity of just making it so big because Star Wars can be anything. I love it all. I love this movie. So.
I don't think either of us can top that, Ross.
No, not at all.
I'm going to even just save my comments for another time. I had a couple more things I wanted to say, but we're going to end it with there. Next episode, we're going to continue our villains bracket. It should be our second of 3 episodes, if everything goes according to plan. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @MoreCivilized and join our Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast.
Also, make sure to visit the website where the podcast will be hosted, which will be amorecivilizedpodcast.podbean.com. I can also be found at Mr_R* on Twitter.
And I can be found at Twitter at Itinerant Avenger. Got it on the first try. Thank you all. May the Force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to A More Civilized Podcast.